Chapter 1904. At the border between the Empyrean Terminus Ancestral Land and the Divine Cauldron Ancestral Land, there was a free space. Not only was this area extremely wide, but it was also much wider than any of the ancestral lands. However, no ancestral land dared to occupy such a vast territory. The main reason was that there was the most peculiar area here, the Five Elements realm. There was a Five Elements mountain in the Five Elements realm, which contained extremely pure power of the Five Elements. Legend had it that there were all kinds of divine medicines. However, the Five Elements mountain had a time to open and close. Once it was closed, it would be extremely difficult to enter or exit. Now that the Five Elements mountain was about to open again, 5 rays of divine light soared into the sky, as if to tell the surrounding ancestral lands that they were ready to open and that they should be prepared to come in. For this reason, all the ancestral lands had sent people over to collect divine medicines. A carriage was slowly moving along the road. There were not many guards, only a coachman sitting in front to help drive the horse. Along the way, it was neither slow nor hurried, as if it was a sightseeing trip. There were many cultivators on the side, running towards the colorful divine light in front of them. A group of people looked at the carriage with disdainful expressions. "Senior brother, what's the background of the owner of this carriage? He's still strolling around here leisurely. Doesn't he know that it's a special time?" A beautiful woman asked. This kind of person will appear at any time. This carriage is extremely ordinary. The owner is at most a star master, and the coachman looks even more ordinary. I'm guessing he's only at the star apostle level. It seems that he wants to go to the Five Elements mountain. With such an arrogant attitude, I'm afraid the Five Elements mountain will close. This senior brother's mouth was very vicious, as if he had seen through everything. He had seen through the owner of the carriage in front of him. Senior brother's eyes are sharp. Hey, there's another carriage on the side. It seems to be of an even higher grade. The junior sister's gaze shifted to the back of the carriage. At this time, there was an extremely luxurious carriage driving over. Whether it was the material of its appearance or the spirit of the guards, it was far superior to the inconspicuous carriage in front of it. Sure, that's a disciple of the Divine Cauldron Ancestral Land. From the looks of it, he's not an ordinary disciple. At the very least, he's a core disciple. This senior martial brother hastily pulled his junior martial sister and hid far away. Divine Cauldron Ancestral Land, isn't that a power right next to us? The junior sister covered her mouth in surprise, not daring to speak too loudly. The ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron was right beside him, so it was almost equivalent to half of the owner of this place. After all, reinforcements would arrive soon. As the saying goes, a powerful dragon can't suppress a local snake. The forces were right next to the Five Elements mountain. Anyone who dared to go against them basically didn't need to come to the Five Elements mountain. Of course, he is half the owner of the Five Elements mountain. The senior brother looked at the ordinary carriage with a gloating expression. There's going to be a good show. We just said that there would be a problem, and now there's a problem. There is only one path here. I think the disciples of the Divine Cauldron Ancestral Land will definitely not take a detour. Sure enough, when the extremely luxurious carriage was about to reach the back of the ordinary carriage, the coachman of the luxurious carriage shouted, "The one in front, hurry up and move to the side." This coachman's cultivation was at the middle stage of the Star Master, but he was acting as a coachman. This caused the surrounding cultivators to be unable to help but guess what level of core disciple the owner of the carriage was. The carriage in front of him turned a deaf ear to him and was still in the center of the main road, showing no signs of moving away. "My lord wants to take a look here. If you're in a hurry, you can go around from the side. This road is enough to accommodate several carriages," the coachman in front said in a low voice. He was still driving the horse at an unhurried pace. It was only the horse's turn. In theory, it could no longer be considered an ordinary horse, but a divine horse. These horses looked somewhat like dragons and were generally called dragon horses. They could fly in the sky at will and belonged to the more common dragon horses. However, the dragon horse behind him was of an even higher grade. Whether it was the appearance of its fur or the state of its cultivation, It was far superior to the dragon horse on this side. Hee, there's a good show to watch. He's really arrogant. It seems like he obviously doesn't know the identity of the coachman behind him. The senior brother smiled and said, even if the road is as wide as the ocean, no one will give way to the one in the middle. The road here was indeed spacious, enough to accommodate several carriages. As soon as these words were spoken, the coachman's face darkened. How dare you? Do you know who we are? We are from the Divine Cauldron ancestral land. If you don't get out of the way, don't blame us for being impolite. Why are you wasting time with him? Just charge over and send them flying. Can they and you bear the responsibility for delaying me from entering the 5-element mountain to get the divine medicine? A lazy voice sounded from within the carriage, sounding even more arrogant. His words were a little funny. If he was really in a hurry, wouldn't it be faster to drive and fly? Why would he walk on the road? Yes, sir. After the coachman received the order, his eyes turned cold. He picked up his whip and whipped the dragon horse. Let's go. Neigh. Accompanied by a horse's cry, the dragon horse in front turned into a bolt of lightning and rushed over. A vague dragon force emerged from its back, and it really stimulated the dragon bloodline in its body. In an instant, the dragon horse rushed to the back of the carriage in front and was about to crash into it. The coachman in front snorted coldly, "How dare you?" The coachman stretched out his hand and pressed down lightly. A force condensed in the void and pressed forward, crushing the dragon horse that rushed up to him into a meat paste. Such a precious dragon horse couldn't even withstand one move from the coachman before it was slapped to death. As soon as the dragon horse died, due to the problem of strength, the carriage directly rushed forward. However, the coachman who was driving the carriage was quick to react. He quickly pressed his body down and pressed the carriage down. "How dare you kill my young master's beloved horse?" The coachman was furious. He released his middle-stage star master cultivation, and the second-level star dharma idol behind him also exploded. He was ready to make a move. "I'll give you a chance. Obediently go around us and we'll let you go." The coachman's expression was cold, and his eyes were full of killing intent. "My lord said that he doesn't want to fight today." "Oh, you have some skills. Let's see who's the real deal. We'll know after we try." Since the coachman's horse was killed, it was his dereliction of duty. Naturally, he wanted to make up for it. Otherwise, the master behind him would not let him off easily. At this time, the master in the front carriage glanced over and said calmly, "It's really not peaceful to come out." Chapter 1905. The coachman behind the carriage roared and rushed over, not caring about the identity of the person inside. To him, to be able to ride such a shabby carriage, his status was definitely not high, so he could just casually kill him. However, before he could get close, the coachman on Etienne's side reached out his hand and lightly patted, turning the coachman who had rushed over into a meat patty. "It's so noisy, don't affect the lord's mood." After the coachman made his move, he lightly returned to the side of the carriage, as if nothing had happened. This scene caused the spectating cultivators to be dumbfounded. They thought that Etienne's side would definitely die, but who would have thought that it would be the other side that exploded with a single palm strike? That's an expert at the middle stage of the Star Master, yet he exploded with a single palm strike. Just how strong is that coachman? That senior brother's heart trembled. He had thought that the carriage in front of him would be crushed, but who knew that it would be the other way around? He was slapped to death. The little junior sister at the side widened her eyes in shock. Someone had actually attacked the Divine Cauldron ancestral land. Wouldn't that be equivalent to declaring war on the Divine Cauldron ancestral land? Isn't this a little too bold? The little junior sister covered her mouth, frightened by this scene. That's right, and it's very bold. This is not the territory of the Divine Cauldron ancestral land, but it is at the side of the Divine Cauldron ancestral land. This time, they are done for. No matter what their identities are, they are all doomed. The senior brother said confidently, "In a short period of time, he will definitely be finished." The Divine Cauldron ancestral land has sent many disciples over this time, and it's not just this one. Moreover, to be able to come here like this, I believe that his identity is definitely not simple. The little junior sister nodded as well, feeling that her senior brother was right. At this moment, a figure slowly walked out of the carriage. An extraordinarily handsome young man entered everyone's eyes. It's young Master Yu Lu. The little junior sister cried out involuntarily, her beautiful eyes filled with surprise. It's young Master Yu Lu. When this senior brother saw his junior sister's infatuated face, he felt a little more jealous. This time, they're finished. It's young Master Yu Lu, a famous genius in the Divine Cauldron ancestral land, an existence that has awakened a level 4-star Dharma idol. He is being nurtured in the Divine Cauldron ancestral land. The senior brother shook his head. If he was a girl, he would like such an outstanding genius. Especially since he was so handsome and talented, his potential was limitless. How could such a young talent not be liked? At this moment, everyone felt that Yi Tianyun's side was done for. After offending young Master Yu Lu, how could he let this matter rest? If you want to beat a dog, you should look at its master. How dare you kill my coachman? No matter which faction you come from, you must give me an explanation. Young Master Yu Lu took a step forward, and his aura surged like a rainbow. Behind him, the grade 4-star law idol surged out, turning into a giant elephant. His cultivation was not very high. He was only at the late stage of the Star Master realm. However, he was able to have such a cultivation at such a young age. He was indeed a genius. Explanation? The coachman snorted coldly. You disturbed my master's mood and even attacked him. Isn't that a capital offense? It's fine if he doesn't make a move, but once he does, it won't be easy to deal with. Your family's lord? Young Master Yu Lu coldly snorted, hiding inside and not coming out? Then let me see what your true colors are. Young Master Yu Lu could not be bothered with a coachman. He stretched out his hand and slapped the carriage that Yi Tianyun was in. He wanted to destroy the carriage and force the person inside to come out. A genius was indeed a genius. His first move was an amazing star form secret art. In this world, there were many types of martial arts. The lowest level was the star form secret art, followed by the star field secret art and the galaxy secret art. Every level of martial arts had 3 grades. Naturally, their power would be different. These were all martial arts that could truly display the power of the stars. Compared to the martial arts of the lower realm, it was like the difference between clouds and mud. Ordinary star apostles did not have such martial arts. As for those who were once slaves, they did not have such a level of martial arts. As he attacked, the power of the giant elephant behind him increased greatly. The power of the stars continuously surged, and it was as if heaven and earth were moving. The eyes of those female cultivators lit up. With this level of power, even if he faced Grandmaster Xing, he would be able to fight. He is indeed a genius. He is really powerful. The senior brother clenched his fists, and his eyes were filled with jealousy. He also wanted to have such power, and he also wanted to have such talent. Unfortunately, he did not have it. The gap was still a gap, and it was difficult to make up for it. How dare you? The coachman, who looked extremely lowly, stepped forward. Suddenly, a terrifying power rushed to the sky, and a 3rd-grade star Dharma emerged behind him. The 3rd-grade star Dharma was a level lower than his opponent, but his cultivation made everyone's faces turn pale. It was Grandmaster Xing. An unreachable cultivation. The chances of a star master breaking through to Grandmaster Xing were extremely small. However, as a genius, young Master Yu Lu naturally had no problem. It was just that his current cultivation was not Grandmaster Xing, but Star Master. Even if he was a genius, he still felt powerless when facing a Grandmaster Xing. Grandmaster Xing? Young Master Yu Lu was dumbfounded. He never thought that a coachman would have the cultivation of Grandmaster Xing. In the Ancestors' lands, existences at the level of Grandmaster Xing, no matter how weak they were at the level of a deacon. Some were even at the level of an elder. But now, he had become a coachman. This was really hard to believe. A coachman was very lowly. His coachman's cultivation was not bad, but it was also through the constant consumption of elixirs. His talent was basically at the limit, and it was extremely difficult for him to take a step forward. This coachman just wanted to ride on young Master Yu Lu's thigh so that he could have more elixirs to take and continue to move forward. Being able to improve a little was a little, but now he was killed with a slap. Young Master Yu Lu continuously retreated, but it was all too late. A slap came down and made young Master Yu Lu kneel on the ground, unable to move. Do you know where this is? I am from the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron. If you kill me, you will undoubtedly die. Young Master Yu Lu did not beg for mercy. With so many people staring at him, he could not beg for mercy. Moreover, he had such a strong backing, so it was even more impossible for him to give in. Although it was amazing to have Grandmaster Xing as a coachman, it was not clear what methods he used to become a coachman. The coachman did not kill him. Instead, he looked towards the carriage that Yi Tianyun was in and listened to what he had to say. Ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron? Yi Tianyun's voice came from within, carrying a hint of doubt. That's right, it's the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron. Let me go obediently and I won't pursue this matter. Young Master Yu Lu thought that Yi Tianyun would let him go. Hearing the words ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron, many people would give him face. Chapter 1906. Kill. This was not said by the coachman, but by the surrounding cultivators. They were all shocked by the words that came from the carriage. This was an elite disciple of the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron. If he was killed, it would be equivalent to provoking the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron. Under such circumstances, wouldn't it be equivalent to being surrounded by strong enemies sent by the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron? There might even be a few elders nearby. These disciples were only here to gain experience. Those who could truly enter the depths of the five-element mountain were naturally those at the elder level, which was also the existence of Master Xing. Star masters like them were only taking a stroll around the periphery. How could they go deeper inside? In the depths of the five-element mountain, it was not their turn to enter. They would probably die inside not long after entering. Yes, my lord. The coachman did not hesitate at all. He raised his palm and slapped it towards young Master Yu Lu. His attack was extremely ruthless. You can't do this to me. I am the core of the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron. Bam! Young Master Yu Lu was blasted apart by the palm and turned into a cloud of blood mist. He could not be more dead. He killed without any mercy. He only listened to Yi Tianyun. As long as Yi Tianyun said to kill, he would kill. It was no big deal. Yi Tianyun did not know how many of these so-called geniuses had been killed by him. There were many such disciples in the Empyrean Terminus ancestral land. What genius disciples? In the end, they were all killed by him with a single slap. Yi Tianyun did not even know how many core disciples of the Empyrean Terminus ancestral land he had killed. In any case, if they were in front of him, he would just kill them with a wave of his hand. On the other hand, the core disciples of the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron were not much different from the core disciples of the Empyrean Terminus ancestral land. The combined strength of the two forces was about the same. Otherwise, they would not have been in a stalemate for so long. My lord. The coachman came to the side of the carriage. Let's continue. Yi Tianyun said indifferently. Everything went on as usual. There was no delay, and they did not turn around and leave. If it were any other cultivator, they would have turned around and left. If they continued to walk forward, they would definitely encounter the cultivators of the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron. At that time, it wouldn't be so easy to resolve. Young Master Yu Lu is dead. Little junior sister covered her mouth in shock as she looked at young Master Yu Lu's corpse. The young master that she had loved so much had now turned into a pile of soft mud. He couldn't be more dead. On the other hand, a hint of delight flashed in the depths of the senior brother's eyes. A genius that was more outstanding than him had been killed. This was naturally something that made him feel extremely carefree. Putting on a comforting expression, he patted his junior sister's shoulder and said, "What a pity for a genius." However, I don't know where that mysterious person from just now came from, but no matter who he is, he's probably dead for sure. Provoking the divine cauldron ancestral land is not a simple matter. Even if the coachman is a Master Xing, it would be useless. There is more than one Master Xing in the divine cauldron ancestral land. He looked in the direction that Yi Tianyun had left and shook his head. His eyes were still filled with joy. He couldn't wait for more of these people to die. Those that he couldn't obtain, or those that he couldn't surpass, had to die. This matter quickly spread in all directions. Like a bomb, it exploded among the cultivators. A mysterious person, whose coachman was Master Xing, had killed the core disciple of the divine cauldron ancestral land, young Master Yu Lu. The news spread very quickly and immediately reached the ears of the elders of the divine cauldron ancestral land. Yu Lu is dead? Elder Ding Yu frowned and asked, "What's going on? Who is so bold as to kill our disciple?" Elder Ding Yu was not angry that Yu Lu had died. Yu Lu's talent was not bad, but if he died, then so be it. Although it was a waste of resources, it was still acceptable. Who was it that dared to kill a core disciple of the divine cauldron ancestral land? This was equivalent to a heavy slap on the face of the divine cauldron ancestral land. Knowing that this was half of the divine cauldron ancestral land's region, yet daring to cause trouble here, it was obvious that they were not giving the divine cauldron ancestral land any face. "I'm not too sure. I only heard that there is a Master Xing as a coachman. His background doesn't seem to be small." There was a playful look in the depths of Elder Yu Ding's eyes. However, he also felt a bit angry. How could he be happy to make a move on his own territory? As a coachman, Master Xing is truly capable. Elder Ding Yu snorted coldly. It's hard to say which power's young master came to the 5-element mountain to search for treasures. It seems that our divine cauldron ancestral land hasn't made a move for too long. Do you really think that we don't have any anger? That's right. It doesn't matter if he's a dragon or a snake. No matter what, he has to be in front of us. Elder Yu Ding nodded in agreement. It looks like they should be heading this way. When we see them, we'll deal with them together. Elder Yu Ding looked at the group of experts behind him and raised his head slightly to signal them. Yes, Elder Yu Ding. They all emitted a powerful aura. Each of them had the cultivation of Master Xing. In their eyes, a mere Master Xing was nothing. Not to mention one Master Xing, even if there were 2 Master Xing, they wouldn't be afraid. Just here alone, there were more than 10 Master Xing. However, they were not used to deal with Yi Tianyun. They were only used to come to the 5-element mountain. At the same time, on the main road, the carriage was still moving forward at a leisurely pace. Yi Tianyun is sitting inside the carriage. Watching the situation outside, he is not worried at all. He looked outside and then at the front. His coachman was Han Long, a member of Team Godslayer previously. When Yi Tianyun chose to leave the 5-element mountain, Han Long was the first to say that he wanted to follow Yi Tianyun. As a coachman, he didn't feel aggrieved at all. In fact, he was even happy. Yi Tianyun didn't say anything. Since Han Long was willing to follow him, he would follow him. This trip was very simple. That was, to find the celestial terminus star and kill him. In this way, the celestial terminus ancestors' land could be completely liberated. Otherwise, when the celestial terminus star returned, he would definitely cause great harm. In fact, Yi Tianyun's idea was even simpler. He wanted to get rid of all future troubles. That was the right thing to do. After inquiring about the good news, he finally confirmed that the celestial terminus star had come to the 5-element mountain. In other words, the celestial terminus star had been staying in the 5-element mountain to guard a divine herb. This divine herb could help him break through to a higher cultivation stage. Naturally, he was reluctant to leave it. Even when the celestial terminus ancestral land was destroyed, he didn't come back. Hearing this news, he naturally went to the 5-element mountain. However, it wasn't time for the 5-element mountain to open. Therefore, he didn't need to rush to the 5-element mountain. He could go there slowly. When he reached the 5-element mountain, his plan would begin. The 5-element mountain? The divine herb. Yi Tianyun's eyes lit up. The divine herb was also very helpful to him. Chapter 1907. The five-element mountain was actually a divine mountain formed by 5 different attributes. The divine mountains of different attributes surrounded each other, forming a special world. Rumor had it that the size of this special area was equivalent to the size of several ancestral lands. There were many divine medicines inside, some of which were extremely precious. A single divine medicine could allow a star apostle to advance from star apostle to star grandmaster, or even star venerate. There were also some that could increase the level of star power after being absorbed. This kind of medicine was even more maddening. Therefore, more and more cultivators kept rushing over. Although this was known as half of the territory of the Divine Cauldron ancestral lands, they really did not dare to interfere completely. If they really did, the Divine Cauldron ancestral lands would be flattened. Therefore, all cultivators could come. Whoever could get the divine medicine would depend on their own ability. In other words, whether or not he could successfully leave after obtaining the godly medicine was another matter. There were many ruthless people here. If they were not careful, they might die on the spot. In the outer area of the five-element mountain, there were a large number of forces waiting outside, waiting for the gate to open. However, these were all people with ordinary cultivation and did not dare to enter rashly. Those with strong cultivation had entered long ago. The opening of the five-element mountain did not mean that it was officially open. It was usually open. However, there was a lot of fog and many dangerous places, so it was not easy to enter. If one's cultivation was not at the level of Star Grandmaster or above, they would probably die if they entered casually. Even with Star Grandmaster's cultivation, they would die if they entered casually. As the opening time approached, the fog and dangers gradually decreased, and Star Grandmaster could enter casually. Those with low cultivations would stay outside and wait for the five elements mountain to open before they could enter. Thus, those who stayed outside were all of cultivations below Grandmaster Shing's. They weren't very high. However, there were many cultivators from various forces gathered here, regardless of whether they were from the ancestral lands or a certain large clan. The ancestral lands were similar to the Celestial Peak ancestral lands, but it did not mean that some large clans were weak. Perhaps the area they occupied was not as extensive as the ancestral lands. However, their strength was not weak. There were definitely many Star Grandmasters. However, there were probably no Star Venerates. Or perhaps the ancestors had appeared, but there were no more, so naturally, they could not become the ancestral lands. To put it bluntly, those that could be called ancestral lands had Star Venerates guarding them. No matter how bad it was, there had been Star Venerates in the past. Celestial Lords were the standard to measure an ancestral land. After all, Celestial Lords were the strongest here. No matter how many Grandmasters there were, they could not compare to a Celestial Lord. As for those who did not have a Star Venerate and still occupied their ancestral lands, they definitely had startling accumulations or the various formations laid by the Star Venerates. Hence, if a Star Venerate really attacked, they would be able to deal with it. Under such circumstances, they would naturally be able to defend their territory. However, if a Star Venerate did not appear for a long time, it would definitely decline. Just as the cultivators were discussing something, a horse carriage approached them slowly, attracting everyone's attention. Hey, that guy is really shameless, driving a broken car over here. Hey, that's true. Such a simple and crude carriage, yet they had the nerve to come here. Who knew which faction they belonged to? As for that coachman, he looks so ordinary. I wonder where he came from. This kind of trash dares to come to the Five Elements Mountain to try his luck. It seems like anyone dares to come here. Some of the sharp-tongued cultivators immediately started to criticize the horse carriage that appeared. They felt that this person had the nerve to come here with such a broken carriage. Any random carriage here was 1,000 times more luxurious than the one that had just appeared. Even the dragon horse in front was of a much higher grade. Such a shabby arrangement made them scoff at it. One of the cultivators stepped forward and blocked the way of this simple and crude carriage. Stop right there. This is not a place you can come to. Go wherever you want to go. Don't come in here. How unlucky. Going in with these people is really embarrassing. A few strong men walked over and looked at the simple and crude carriage with an extremely disgusted expression. They waved their hands, indicating for the coachman to leave quickly. They found it an eyesore. It was an insult to them to let such a lowly cultivator enter the 5 Elements Mountain. The world was big, and there were all kinds of people. There were many people who found others an eyesore. Many cultivators at the side had gloating expressions on their faces as they looked over, wanting to watch a good show. As a coachman, Han Long was dressed very casually. He looked like an old man in his 60s or 70s. In fact, Han Long was an old star apostle. He thought that he could not continue to break through, but he slowly climbed up and finally became a star master. Logically speaking, with such a huge increase in lifespan, he could change his appearance at will. However, he did not do so. Instead, he chose to maintain his original appearance. Coupled with the fact that he did not dress up, he looked even more like an old man. How could these people with low cultivation see that his real identity was Star Master? When Han Long was about to flatten these people who were blocking his way, a voice suddenly interrupted from the side. Isn't the Budon clan a little too arrogant? Is this 5 Elements Mountain owned by your clan? At this moment, a woman stood up and was very dissatisfied with them. This woman was delicate and pretty. If one looked carefully, they would find that she was really good-looking and had a bit of a fairy aura. She did not deliberately make herself extremely beautiful. When her cultivation reached the Star Apostle level, she could change her appearance at will. It seemed that she did not change her appearance and just maintained her original appearance. Oh, Miss Qing Shui of the Qingdan clan, you really have nothing to do. Why are you meddling in this kind of matter? Ba Mo frowned and looked over, feeling very displeased. I just can't stand your clan being so overbearing. I just came to take a look. Is there a need to make things difficult for you? Qing Shui said coldly. Qing Shui, don't be a busybody. A woman at the side pulled her over. She did not want her to meddle in this matter. After all, other people's matters had nothing to do with them. The other disciples all frowned. They were a little displeased with Qing Shui for being a busybody. This place was already quite chaotic. Wasn't she stirring up trouble by meddling in other people's affairs? Ha, did you see that? Your own senior sister told you not to be a busybody. Do you understand? Ba Mo sneered. If you want to be a busybody, have the power first, idiot. Qing Shui was so angry that her face alternated between red and white. She usually could not stand these kinds of things, but she did not expect to be rebuked. However, this was the truth. Her cultivation was not bad, and she was at the early stage of Star Master. However, in this clan, her words did not have much weight. To put it bluntly, it was good enough to take care of herself. How could she have the ability to take care of others? Chapter 1908. For Qing Shui to stand up and speak for Yi Tianyun, even Han Long can't help but smile. This kind of person is really not easy to deal with. In this world, many people were bystanders. Those with a sense of justice died quickly. Those with low cultivation dared to speak up for Yi Tianyun. Wasn't that courting death? Trouble came from the mouth. This saying was true. If one was not careful, they would provoke a large group of forces. They would not even know how they died. Qing Shui was one of them. She was immediately dragged back by her senior brothers and sisters, their eyes full of blame. They felt that their junior sister was simply looking for trouble for their family. This place was chaotic enough. If they provoked any force, they would not be able to move an inch. Junior sister, calm down. There is no benefit in helping them. It's just an old man. We don't even know who is in the carriage. Anyway, no matter who it is, what kind of important person could be in such a shabby carriage? Blue Moon frowned from the side. This junior sister of hers wasn't bad at all, but her sense of justice was especially strong. It was fine if she was strong normally. After all, with their family, they were not afraid of ordinary forces. But it was different now. Any family force could be on equal footing with them, even if they did not surpass them. Forces that were too small would not dare to come. It wasn't easy to survive in the 5 Elements Mountain. He didn't have many disciples to begin with, and if he wasn't careful, he might lose his life here. But, Qing Shui said in a low voice, the Badan family has always been like this. They often make life difficult for our family. That's true, but you still have to calm down. There are so many forces here. Be careful not to let others take advantage of them. Qing Yue tried to persuade them. If it were other disciples, she would not have been so patient. She would have been punished to go into confinement long ago. Ba Mo from the Badan family smiled proudly when he saw that there was nothing more to say. He continued to walk towards Han Long. Let's see who else can help you now. Ba Mo looked at Han Long and sneered. I'll say it for the last time. Either get out of my sight or die. Han Long continued to drive the dragon horse into the Five Elements Mountain, completely ignoring their existence. Seeing that Han Long continued to drive the carriage over and had no intention of stopping, Ba Mo flew into a rage. He waved his hand and slapped toward Han Long. He said angrily, "Did you not hear what I said?" With this palm strike, even if the coachman did not die, the dragon horse in front of him would be flattened. Many cultivators turned their heads to the side. They did not want to see what was happening here. Some of them could not stand the situation here, but they did not have the strength to stop them. As for Qing Shui, she was being dragged by Blue Moon and couldn't go over at all. All she could do was look to the side, unable to bear to see what would happen next. Scram! Han Long spat out softly, and a shockwave burst out, sending Ba Mo and the others flying. Just the aura alone was enough to send them flying. They were seriously injured and on the verge of death. Han Long did not deliberately hold back. He deliberately left them with a breath to let them know who they had provoked. These were just some small families. How could Han Long be afraid? Of course, all of this was authorized by Yi Tianyun. If not for Yi Tianyun, he would not have done it. A sudden shout caused everyone to turn their heads. They found that Ba Mo and the others were lying on the ground, seriously injured. This situation stunned them. Ba Mo and the others did not have high cultivations, but they were still Star Master middle stage cultivators. Yet, they were sent flying by the roar of a coachman, and they bled from their 7 orifices. This meant that the coachman's cultivation was extremely high, and he was a very strong one. It's at the Star Master level. Immediately, someone sensed the energy waves. Some had sensed the aura of Star Master level before, so they naturally sensed it immediately. This time, they were even more shocked. One of the coachmen was actually at the Star Master level. He looked very inconspicuous, but he was at the Star Master level. This made them think, what kind of person would be inside the carriage? Even if he was not Star Master level, his status would definitely not be low. He might even be a young master of a big family or a big force. Qing Shui and the others were stunned. They did not expect such a great reversal. The other clansmen of the Badan clan quickly came over to pick up Ba Mo and the others. They found that they were already on the verge of death. Unless there was a divine pill, they could not be saved. You are too cruel. The clansmen of the Badan clan looked over angrily. Ba Mo and the others were their outstanding disciples. They had spent a lot of money to cultivate them. Seeing that they could not survive, it was equivalent to wasting a lot of resources. Cruel? How ridiculous! Why don't you take a look at what your family's idiots did to us? If it wasn't for our cultivation being a bit stronger, I'm afraid we would have all been killed. Han Long sneered, if you don't accept it, feel free to come find this old servant for revenge. I will take it all, but when the time comes, it will not end so easily. Han Long snorted coldly. He released the cultivation of Star Master level, giving them an endless sense of pressure. This made their faces pale. The strength of the Badan clan was not bad, but the cultivation of Star Master level was relatively small. At most, there were only a few of them. Now that a group of idiots had provoked Star Master level, it was obviously not worth it. If the elders of the clan found out, they would definitely be scolded to death. The coachmen were all Star Masters. Who knew what forces they had provoked? When they heard this, they immediately shut up obediently and did not dare to speak anymore. My God, this unremarkable old man is actually Star Master. This is too unbelievable. Qing Yue and the others were shocked. They were stunned. Qing Shui was even more shocked. She had wanted to help them before, but now it seemed that she was naive. The carriage continued to drive towards the 5-element mountain. When it passed by them, Yi Tianyun's voice came from inside the carriage. Miss, I will give you a choice now. Either you follow me in now, and I will give you a good fortune. Or you go in and meet me, and I will give you a good fortune. The premise is that you can meet me. Qing Shui was stunned. She pointed at herself and asked doubtfully, Is he talking about me? That's right, it's you. Yi Tianyun's voice came again. Qing Shui was stunned. She did not know what to choose. It was undeniable that the other party was definitely very powerful. It was just that she was not sure of his identity. Would it not be good to casually follow him? She only hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, I am willing to go in with you now. She did not think too much and chose to follow him in. Everyone yearned to become stronger, and she was no exception. Then come in. Yi Tianyun's voice came again. Chapter 1909. After entering the carriage, Qing Shui was very surprised when she saw the mysterious man's face. He was too young. She thought he would be a middle-aged man or an old man. Although the appearance could be changed, she could feel a youthful aura from Yi Tianyun, which meant that he was definitely not old. Greetings, Your Excellency. Qing Shui knelt down on one knee in the spacious carriage respectfully. Sit down. Yi Tianyun smiled. He just wanted to take Qing Shui with him. Seeing that she was so righteous, he didn't mind taking her along. Although the 5 Elements Mountain was full of dangers, he was absolutely confident that he could protect them. Qing Shui sat down awkwardly and secretly looked at Yi Tianyun with curiosity. She didn't know Yi Tianyun's identity at all. She just followed him like this. Her pretty face was a bit hot. God knows what kind of situation he is. What if he has a dangerous identity? But she didn't care so much. She always wanted to go in advance or have someone lead the way. That way, she could get more benefits. But she didn't have this qualification. Only a few people in the family had this kind of treatment. At least she wasn't one of them. Those with excellent talent would be taken in by the elders in advance. So after a little hesitation, she immediately decided to come. She didn't want to miss this opportunity. At this moment, Qing Shui and the others were stunned at first, and then they immediately showed jealousy in their eyes. They didn't expect that such a good opportunity would be taken by their junior sister. Why didn't they get this opportunity? Opportunities were always created by oneself. Among so many people, only Qing Shui stood out. Naturally, Yi Tianyun would only invite Qing Shui. Junior sister met a benefactor? Qing Yue said with extreme jealousy. With Grandmaster Xing's escort, they would be able to walk freely in the 5 Elements Mountain. Not all the areas, but most of them would be able to walk. When they thought about how they didn't say anything to help, they felt extremely regretful. If they had said the same thing, maybe this opportunity would fall on them. But there were no ifs. It couldn't be said that their decision was wrong. It could only be said that sometimes silence could save one's life. If Yi Tianyun and the rest had a low cultivation level, they would only be harming themselves if they offered to help. This was a gamble. If he didn't gamble, he wouldn't be able to achieve anything. While they were feeling envious and jealous, 4 figures suddenly rushed out from the 5-element mountain. The aura of Master Xing immediately enveloped this area. Many cultivators outside felt a sense of pressure. This attracted everyone's attention. When they saw the 4 Grandmasters Xing fly out, they all felt quite confused. They didn't know what these almighty beings were doing. Isn't this the supreme expert of the divine cauldron ancestral land? Why did he suddenly come out? Someone immediately recognized the identity of the newcomer. The gazes of the 4-star Grandmasters swept the area in front of them and quickly stopped at the broken carriage. Are you the ones who killed the disciples of my divine cauldron ancestral land? The leader of the divine charm law enforcers stared coldly at the simple carriage. That was what they had heard. It was said that the assailant was driving a simple carriage. When they saw the simple carriage, they immediately recognized it. As soon as these words came out, it immediately caused an uproar. They didn't expect that this mysterious person would actually provoke the Divine Cauldron Ancestral Land and even kill a disciple of the Divine Cauldron Ancestral Land. For a moment, they revealed expressions of schadenfreude. They wanted to see how Tianyun would settle this. Junior sister is in trouble. She's actually with a group of troublesome people. I'm afraid she'll implicate us this time. Qing Yu's face turned pale. They all knew the power of the Divine Cauldron Ancestral Land. Any family that provoked the Divine Cauldron Ancestral Land would be finished. That's right. She even thinks that she has obtained some good fortune. This is simply a scourge. Senior brother Qing Liang, who was at the side, had a gloomy expression on his face. All the jealousy from before had now been swept away. Instead, it was replaced by schadenfreude. Naturally, they didn't have any jealousy. So what if we killed him? Han Long stood up and said, to be exact, it was this old servant who killed him. If there's any problem, look for this old servant. A bunch of brats who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth think that they can do whatever they want just because they're the disciples of a great power? Han Long did not deny it. If he dared to do it, there was nothing he wouldn't dare to admit. What big words! I don't know which power you're from, but daring to kill our disciples here is a form of contempt for our Divine Cauldron Ancestral Land. The Divine Charm Law Enforcer said coldly, don't think that just because you're a Grandmaster Xing, you're invincible in this world. Immediately after, the four of them immediately unleashed their Dharma idol and prepared to fight. Han Long walked out, and his body emitted crackling sounds. Immediately he turned into a perfect body. He didn't look old at all. He was a sturdy man. The star Dharma idol behind him was not any weaker than the other parties. However, it was 1 against 4, so he was obviously at a disadvantage. You want to deal with us alone? The Divine Charm Law Enforcer sneered. Who's hiding in the carriage? Don't you plan to show yourself? They were more concerned about the situation in the carriage. To be able to make Grandmaster Xing the coachman, it was definitely not simple. Therefore, they wanted to determine the identity of the other party. At this time, everyone's eyes were focused on the side of the carriage. They didn't know who was hiding in the carriage, or if they would come out. This old servant alone is enough to deal with you guys. Han Long growled and rushed towards the four of them. The result was needless to say. Whether it was in terms of foundation or comprehensive strength, he couldn't compare to the other party. Although the martial arts of the Celestial Terminus Ancestral Land were currently occupied by Tianyun, it was relatively difficult to change the martial arts that Han Long cultivated in such a short period of time. Therefore, he used relatively ordinary martial arts. After a few exchanges, Han Long was easily defeated. The defeated Han Long returned to the side of the carriage with a gloomy face. This is your strength? Your martial arts are so weak. It seems that your power is definitely not that good. The Divine Charm Law Enforcer could immediately see that Han Long's level was relatively ordinary, whether it was in terms of treasures or martial arts. This old servant's strength is not limited to this. When Han Long was ready to use his Star Dharma idol, a voice came from the carriage. Han Long, that's enough. At this time, Tianyun came out of the carriage, including Qing Shui. However, Qing Shui's face was pale. She didn't expect that Tianyun would provoke the experts of the Divine Cauldron Ancestral Land. This was not something that could be easily resolved, especially when it was 4 Grandmaster Xing. Chapter 1910. After Tianyun came out, everyone's eyes were focused on him, and everyone's eyes were different. When they saw how young Tianyun was, they all thought that he was the young master of some force. It seemed that he was really arrogant to come out and cause trouble at such a young age. He's indeed young and vigorous. He must be the young master of some family or force. He's in conflict with the disciples of the Divine Cauldron Ancestral Land. Aren't all young people like this? With some strength and status, they start to be arrogant. With the Divine Cauldron Ancestral Land, it's just a dog-eat-dog fight. The disciples of the Divine Cauldron Ancestral Land are equally arrogant. Hee hee, dog-eat-dog, don't say it so loudly, be careful not to be heard, swish. A cold light pierced through and killed a few of the gossiping cultivators. Although they spoke softly, how could they escape the ears of these law enforcers? If they were unhappy, they would be turned into ashes. This time, they all obediently shut up, not daring to say anything even if they were angry. The divine cauldron ancestral land was famous for being overbearing, just like the celestial pole ancestral land. In other words, none of these forces were not overbearing. After all, they all had some ability, so how could they not be overbearing? Don't you know what to say and what not to say? The law enforcement Shin Yun glanced over, causing many cultivators to tremble and take a step back, not daring to resist at all. Then, the law enforcement Shin Yun looked at Yi Tianyun, looked him up and down, and laughed disdainfully. I don't know where this little guy came from, but he dares to come out and mess around just because his family has some strength? What's the point of a Master Xing? If he dares to go against our divine cauldron ancestral land, he will die. Why are the law enforcement Shin Yun wasting time with him? Just kill him and go back. We still have a lot of things to do. If it wasn't for the elder asking us to come out to deal with things, we really wouldn't have bothered to come out. It's really a waste of time. Law enforcement Pei Yun shook her head, wanting to quickly end the situation here so that she could go back. She looked at Yi Tianyun with a face full of disgust. How could she not be disgusted by wasting her time? The divine charm enforcer nodded, but his gaze shifted to Qing Shui. He frowned and said, "That's strange. You seem to be from the Qingdan clan. Are you related to the Qingdan clan?" Qing Shui's attire had the Qingdan family's insignia, so she was immediately recognized. Shen Yun law enforcer, she is from our Qingdan family, but her actions have nothing to do with us. She was the one who acted on her own and was bewitched by others. Blue Moon and the others quickly stood up to explain, drawing a clear line between them and Qing Shui. If they were to be implicated, their Qingdan family would be finished. Qing Shui was startled. Her heart was instantly filled with desolation. What her clan did wasn't wrong. After all, if they were to implicate the Qingdan clan, it would probably cause great destruction. Being abandoned wasn't unexpected, but it was expected. Yi Tianyun glanced over there indifferently. This kind of situation was not rare. For many families, it was an extremely common thing. Are you afraid? Yi Tianyun asked Qing Shui. I'm afraid, but it's my choice. Even if I have to kneel, I have to persist to the end. Qing Shui smiled freely. Anyway, the result was already decided. Why not persist to the end? She didn't have any other choice. She could only bite the bullet and choose to be with Yi Tianyun to the end. Death was death, life was life. Don't worry. You won't die. No one can take away your life. Yi Tianyun stretched out his hand and patted her shoulder. He walked past her and came to the front. Han Long, who was in front, lowered his body and was incomparably respectful. There wasn't the slightest bit of worry in his eyes. He knew that as long as Yi Tianyun made a move, there was nothing that couldn't be solved. What were 4-star grandmasters? Not to mention 4, even if there were 40, they could be dealt with. He had seen Yi Tianyun make a move. That kind of power could even beat up a guardian god. What? You want to beg for mercy? The divine charm law enforcer wasn't in a hurry to make a move. He wanted to see what Yi Tianyun would say. Beg for mercy? I've never begged for mercy. Not now, not in the future. Yi Tianyun smiled faintly and said, Your disciple offended me. He deserves death. Now, I just want to make one point clear. Those who block me will die. It's that simple. The divine charm law enforcer and the others were startled. Then they looked at him as if they were looking at an idiot. They laughed loudly and said, Those who block me will die. What a joke. Who do you really think you are? Even if you have the cultivation of a star grandmaster, can you deal with the 4 of us? Ridiculous, really ridiculous. Or should I say, what kind of identity do you have? Are you the young lord of some ancestral land? Or some super family's young lord? Say it and let us hear it. How about it? The divine charm law enforcer hadn't made a move all along because he wanted to see Yi Tianyun's identity and what kind of background he had. Identity? I'm the master of the celestial pole ancestral land. I wonder if that's enough? Yi Tianyun replied indifferently. The master of the celestial pole ancestral land? The divine charm law enforcer was startled. Then he sneered and said, "That's enough. I thought you would say something, but it turns out that you're just bragging. The master of the celestial pole ancestral land, the celestial pole lord, is inside. You're telling me you're the master? If you want to brag, you have to look at the situation. Do you think we're fools? If I kill him, I'll be the master of the celestial pole ancestral land," Yi Tianyun said indifferently. The divine charm law enforcer was stunned. Then he looked up and down at Yi Tianyun as if he was an idiot. If the celestial pole lord hears this, I don't think we need to do anything. You'll be slapped to death by the celestial pole lord. The other cultivators also looked at him like he was an idiot. Among them, Qin Yue and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, they had distanced themselves from Qin Shui in time. Yi Tianyun was a complete braggart. Not only did he provoke the divine cauldron ancestral land, he also provoked the celestial pole lord. These words would definitely reach the ears of the celestial pole lord. Who didn't know that the celestial pole ancestral land was controlled by the celestial pole lord? However, the big change in the celestial pole ancestral land couldn't be spread here in a short time. Most of the forces still didn't know about it. Even if they knew, it wouldn't spread so quickly. After all, they had all come to the Five-Element Mountain, so the news wasn't very clear for the time being. This was only temporary, but it would be spread soon. People can have no talent and they can't work hard, but they can't be too arrogant and ignorant. Do you really think you're the young master of the Jade God ancestral land? How dare you say such things? The divine charm law enforcer looked at him with a pitiful look. It's time to end it. I thought there would be some background, but in the end, I heard a bunch of nonsense. Divine charm law enforcer, I already told you not to be so long-winded. Now you've wasted a lot of time. The divine charm law enforcer Pei Yun snorted and signaled for them to hurry up. Chapter 1911. Tianyun stood up and said it was over before they said it was over, which startled them, and then they burst into laughter. This boy is really crazy. Does he really think he is the master of the celestial pole ancestral land? Tell me, what is your cultivation level? Is it the Star Master late stage or the Star Lord stage? The divine charm law enforcement enforcer mocked, thinking that Yi Tianyun was really crazy. Judging from his aura, Yi Tianyun didn't seem to have a strong aura. Instead, it felt like he was a Star Master. How could a Star Master fight against them? This situation made the others shake their heads, thinking that Yi Tianyun was really crazy. How dare he speak to the divine charm law enforcement enforcer like this? Most importantly, he was so stupid, which made Qin Yue and the others feel that Qin Shui's choice was really sad. They thought it would be an opportunity and a great creation. Now it seemed that it was the most stupid choice, enough to be recorded in the family's history, so that the younger generation would remember not to do such a stupid thing, meddling in other people's business. Qin Shui not only meddled in other people's business, but also got herself into trouble. They hoped that it wouldn't be brought to the family, otherwise it would be really difficult to deal with. It's a pity for little junior sister. If she had been stable, she might have been given special training one day. I'm afraid she can't do that now. Yes, this is the result of meddling in other people's business. I've already stopped her, but she is still so stubborn. It seems that the divine charm law enforcement enforcer won't let everyone go. They shook their heads, and some of the disciples even gloated in their hearts. Their clansmen had died, but they were gloating. After all, in their opinion, people were too stupid. If they died, they died. It would be fine as long as they didn't implicate the family. Qin Shui stood behind Yi Tianyun, her face pale, but she could only insist on standing there. There was no other choice. As for regret, she didn't regret it. It was her own choice, so there was no need to regret. Can you stop talking nonsense? Yi Tianyun looked at them indifferently. If you want to fight, let's fight together. Don't waste my time. I still have to go in and find the celestial pole lord. How, what a fool. Don't worry. You don't even need to find the celestial pole lord to die. Today, you will die in our hands. The divine charm law enforcement enforcer grabbed this side, and Master Xing's power enveloped this side, trying to lock Yi Tianyun in this side. Before killing Yi Tianyun, he wanted to search his soul to see what memories Yi Tianyun had. At the same time, he was wary of Han Long, who was beside him. No matter what, Han Long's cultivation was Master Xing's cultivation. He couldn't beat 4 of them at once, but if he fought one-on-one, his level wasn't bad. Especially that ruthlessness, it was more like he was risking his life. But Han Long didn't move at all. He just stood behind Yi Tianyun and stared at him as if he was a dead man. He even revealed a strange smile. At that moment, the 5-colored Emperor Dragon Dharma idol appeared behind Yi Tianyun. The Emperor Dragon soared into the sky, immediately suppressing the divine charm enforcement star Dharma idol. Before the other party could react, Yi Tianyun took a step forward and pressed the divine charm enforcer down from the sky. Under the heavy pressure, the divine charm enforcer was directly crushed. An instant kill without the slightest bit of hesitation. A mere Star Grandmaster's early-stage cultivation wasn't even enough to fill his teeth. I already said, don't waste time. If you want to come, then come together. Don't delay. As Yi Tianyun took a step forward, his sharp Emperor's aura swept out in all directions. The intense impact caused everyone's hearts to stop beating, and some of them even took several steps back. As for those with the bloodline of the Dragon Clan, they directly knelt on the ground, their bodies trembling. The impact of the top Star Grandmaster's aura sweeping out in all directions was unparalleled. Especially the unique Star Dharma idol that hung high up in the sky, the impact it brought to them was even more shocking. Unique Star Dharma idol? Behind them, Pei Yun and the others were stunned. They could immediately see that it was a unique Star Dharma idol. If they couldn't see that, they would really be blind. Not to mention them, all the cultivators present could see that. Who couldn't see such dazzling power? My God, this is a unique Star Dharma idol. It's very similar to the phenomenon that appeared last time. Could it be that the mysterious expert with unique Star Dharma idol that appeared last time was him? Qingyue and the others were stunned. They thought that Yi Tianyun was a hedonistic son of a rich family, relying on a bit of power to mess around. Now they were all wrong. He didn't rely on his family background, but on his own ability. A Star Grandmaster was killed in an instant, as if he was drinking water. Qing Shui, who was standing behind Yi Tianyun, was even more shocked. She was originally in despair, but suddenly Yi Tianyun erupted with amazing power, especially that unique Star Dharma idol that was superior to all the other Star Dharma idols. It was even more dazzling. It was like a blazing sun hanging high in the sky, shining down on everything. You, what kind of power are you from? Pei Yun's heart trembled. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over him, making him completely sober. Die. Yi Tianyun didn't want to explain too much to the dead. He rushed over and annihilated Pei Yun, along with the other 2 enforcers, under this impact, directly turning them into ashes. A large depression was plowed into the ground, and no one knew how long it would take for the ground to repair itself. 4 Star Grandmasters were killed. After killing the 4 Star Grandmasters, Yi Tianyun put away his unique Star Dharma idol, turned around, and said, "Let's go in." What a waste of time. Yes, my lord. Han Long bowed deeply, his eyes filled with respect. At the same time, he looked at Qing Shui and said, "This lady, you can return to your seat now." Oh yes. Qing Shui reacted after a while and returned to her seat in the carriage. At this moment, the way she looked at Yi Tianyun was completely different. She didn't even dare to sit still. Her mood was completely different from before. Previously, she didn't know that Yi Tianyun was so strong. She thought that he was just a young master with someone protecting him and that he wasn't very capable. Who knew that Shaochen really was capable? Furthermore, he was very strong and horrifying. Just that aura alone was at the level of a peak Star Grandmaster. Furthermore, he had his unique Star Dharma idol. It looked like he would have no problem entering the Star Venerate level in the future. What's wrong? Are you a little nervous? Are you afraid that I will eat you up? Yi Tianyun smiled at her. Milord is too incredible. I never thought of that. Qing Shui became even more restrained, her voice becoming weaker. If I don't even have this ability, how can I give you an opportunity? Yi Tianyun smiled and said, when I said that I would give you an opportunity, I meant it. There is no need to worry about other problems. Chapter 1912. Han Long continued to drive the carriage towards the Five-Element Mountain. This time, no one dared to stop them. The people of the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron were all dead. Who else would dare to stop him? Even if someone had some ability, they wouldn't come to stop them. After all, it wasn't a good thing to forcefully stand out without any grievances. When Han Long arrived at the foot of the Five-Element Mountain, he gently waved his hand in the face of the heavy fog. Master Xing's power enveloped the entire carriage and it slowly entered. As soon as they entered, the fog immediately wrapped around them, wanting to engulf the carriage. However, under Han Long's power, the fog couldn't invade at all. This was the power of Master Xing. A mere fog couldn't invade at all. If it were any other cultivator, they would have been wrapped up long ago. They wouldn't die, but they would be trapped inside and wouldn't be able to come out for a while. If they got lost and wandered around, it was even more likely that they would walk into a dangerous area. At that time, they wouldn't even know how they died. This was only the first stage. The ones inside were even more dangerous. Otherwise, the cultivators outside would have rushed in long ago instead of waiting foolishly outside. When they disappeared from everyone's sight, everyone gasped and saw shock in each other's eyes. Unique star aspect. The power to kill Master Xing in an instant was comparable to a Star Lord. These made them unable to recover for a long time. Some of them had never seen such a tyrannical power before. Perhaps only a Star Lord could achieve such power, right? Senior brother, didn't you say that you provoked the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron? That young master just now was so strong. At this moment, those from the clans came over. That junior sister saw Yi Tianyun's true appearance and even saw that terrifying power. That senior brother's expression was even more stiff. He didn't expect that the person sitting in the carriage would be such a terrifying existence. Unique star aspect, what kind of concept was that? Yes, very strong. The senior brother's face twitched. Previously, he said that Yi Tianyun would definitely die. Now, it seemed that there was a reversal. Qing Yu's face turned green and white. Previously, she thought that Qing Shui had chosen the wrong person, but who knew that she had chosen the right person? With the unique power of the star aspect and a heaven-defying cultivation, it wouldn't be a problem at all to bring Qing Shui to wander around. No wonder he had Grandmaster Xing as a coachman. The two of them could not be compared. Most of all, they were still suspicious of Yi Tianyun's identity. They didn't know what Yi Tianyun's identity was, but now that they saw his standards, it was very likely that he was from a major power. Could he be the young master of Jade God Ancestral Land? The ancestral land of the Jade Divinity. That's possible. The ancestral land of the Jade Divinity is too strong. There are so many geniuses there. The ancestral land of the Jade God. That's the most powerful existence among all the ancestral lands. A group of cultivators are filled with yearning for the Jade God Ancestral Land. It is many times stronger than the Celestial Core Ancestral Land. It was said that the ancestral land of the Jade God once had a Star Venerable. Star Venerables were existences at a higher level than Star Lords. There were no Star Venerables at the moment, but there were 3 Star Lords. A 3-star monarch sect. And this was still alive, which was enough to show how terrifying it was. Therefore, they all linked it to the ancestral land of the Jade God and felt that Yi Tianyun was most likely from the ancestral land of the Jade God. Only the ancestral land of the Jade God could have such a monstrous genius, right? But if it was really the ancestral land of the Jade God, why would he take such an ordinary carriage? After thinking about it carefully, they could only speculate that it was to keep a low profile. But it was hard for them. They missed such a good opportunity. After this speculation, the faces of Qing Yue and the others became even darker. The fire of jealousy in their hearts was about to burst out from their eyes. Such a huge reversal made them go crazy. Junior sister, are you going to become a phoenix? Qingyue's face turned pale. When they thought of the situation where they had nothing to do with each other, they felt a lingering fear. What if Qing Shui joined the ancestral land of the Jade God? If they held a little grudge, they would definitely be finished. If they had to make a comparison, the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron couldn't even compare with the toes of the ancestral land of the Jade God. After all, the ancestral land of the Jade God had 3 Star Lords, not to mention other resources. If they wanted to destroy the ancestral land of the Jade God, 5 ancestral lands of the Divine Cauldron, or even 10 ancestral lands of the Divine Cauldron would not be enough. With the help of Star Venerables, they must have extremely terrifying resources. The Star Lords who went over were very likely to be killed by the great formations set up by the Star Venerables. Therefore, if Yi Tianyun was really a member of the ancestral land of the Jade God, the Star Lords of the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron not only did not dare to pursue the matter, but also had to obediently come to apologize. This was the effect of power. After slapping you a few times, you still had to apologize. While they were talking, Han Long drove the carriage deeper into the 5 Elements Mountain. Soon, he pushed through the layers of fog and officially entered the 5 Elements Mountain. As soon as he entered, the rich power of the 5 elements enveloped the inside, like a great fairyland. As expected of an existence comparable to the fairyland. Just by cultivating here, ordinary people can easily break through. When Yi Tianyun came in and sensed the situation, his eyes immediately lit up. Even if ordinary people stayed here and kept absorbing the rich power, they could easily break through to the Star Apostle level. The premise was that they could stay here for a long time. Once this time passed, this place would become very dangerous. Even if they didn't move, it would be useless. There were many giant beasts in the 5 Elements Mountain. If they met any living beings from the outside world, they would tear them to pieces without hesitation. Therefore, they could only stay in there for a short period of time. They couldn't stay for too long. This period of time was at most half a year. After half a year, the 5 Elements Mountain would definitely be closed. At that time, even Grandmaster Xing and Lord Tianxing wouldn't be able to go out easily. That would be completely different from the current semi-open situation. The Celestial Terminus Lord didn't want to go back, and that was to be trapped here. Qing Shui's gaze shifted outside. After breaking through the fog, she could see the surrounding environment clearly. Ordinary elixirs could be seen everywhere. Even if it looked like an ordinary grass, it was actually a spiritual herb. These elixirs wouldn't be taken away. Grandmaster Xing, who came in, wasn't interested in them at all. In his opinion, the really precious elixirs were the heavenly and divine elixirs. Generally, after the opening, those with lower cultivation levels would target this place. So many elixirs. That's the phoenix feather fragrance. That's the glazed wind. Qing Shui couldn't help but shout. These were rare things for her outside. Her family was relatively ordinary, so these elixirs weren't very common. Even if they were available, they would be given to those with good talent. She wanted to go over and pluck them. Her eyes were filled with anticipation, and she couldn't wait to pounce on them. Go ahead and pluck a little. Remember, don't pluck too much. This place looks safe, but it's actually very dangerous. If you pluck too much, you will definitely be punished. Tianyun smiled and gestured for her to go ahead. Qing Shui's excited eyes quickly calmed down. She immediately shook her head and said, "No, I'm waiting for the opportunity that you will give me. I can't be attracted by these small profits." Chapter 1913. When Yi Tianyun heard Qing Shui's words, he couldn't help laughing. It seemed that Qing Shui was thinking too much. She thought the fortune he gave her was referring to the scene in front of her. "I said I would give you a fortune, but it's not that simple. It must be something bigger. I just picked them along the way." "It's not a fortune," Yi Tianyun said with a smile. Qing Shui shook her head. She didn't want to get off the carriage to pick the elixirs. She even thought it was a test. Only God knew what some powerful figures were thinking. As long as she stuck to the principle, there wouldn't be any problem. Well, since you don't want to pick them, forget it. But it's true that these elixirs are useful to you, but they're not very meaningful. You'd better look at some good elixirs, which will be more effective. Yi Tianyun didn't continue to persuade her. Anyway, since Qin Shui had made the choice, he could only agree. She didn't know that Yi Tianyun really wanted her to pick the elixirs at will. There weren't many tests. She just needed to pick the elixirs on the roadside if she thought they were suitable. Anyway, it was along the way. She had to hurry if she wanted to pick them. While they were on their way, the news that the celestial terminus ancestral land had been taken away by someone broke out. Arriving late at this time was indeed a little too slow. The news was mainly transmitted to the other ancestral lands first, and then to this area. The distance between the two places was still very far. After all, there were only two forces near the Five Elements Mountain. As for the other forces, they were still far away from each other. It would take some time for them to transmit the news. Most of the information could be extracted, the detailed process could be obtained, and even the images could be obtained. After all, there were so many cultivators watching the battle. Although the celestial terminus ancestral land was controlled, it was not a problem to transmit the news and sell it. There were so many cultivators, and it was impossible for Yi Tianyun to manage them all. It was inevitable that the news would be leaked. When the forces learned about it, they were all shocked. They didn't expect that the celestial terminus ancestral land would be captured so easily. The identity of the person who captured the celestial terminus ancestral land was extremely mysterious. He only knew that he had a unique star Dharma idol and was extremely powerful. When this news spread, even the big families outside knew about it. In the message, there was also a warning, which was to tell them not to provoke this person. At the same time, it also transmitted Yi Tianyun's appearance, saying that he was the current ruler of the Empyrean Terminus ancestral land. This time, Blue Moon and the others were scared out of their wits. All of them began to scream after seeing their current state. This really is a controller. Don't tell me he's aiming for Celestial Terminus Lord? Blue Moon recalled Yi Tianyun's words after reading the message from her family. The current ruler of the Empyrean Terminus ancestral land. Only by killing Empyrean Terminus Star Lord would he be able to become the true ruler of the Empyrean Terminus ancestral land. Senior brother, do you think he can really kill Celestial Terminus Star Lord? The junior sister asked her senior brother. How is that possible? At best, that fellow was just a late-stage Grandmaster Xing, not a Star Venerate. The gap between a Star Venerate and Grandmaster Xing is so huge. Celestial Terminus Star-Lord can crush him with one finger. The senior brother said confidently, if Celestial Terminus Star-Lord wasn't in the Empyrean Terminus ancestral land, that fellow wouldn't have survived until now. He was even more displeased with Yi Tianyun. He was young, powerful, and had a unique Star Dharma idol. He couldn't wait for Yi Tianyun to die immediately. Star Venerate, everyone yearned for this cultivation. Once they became Star Venerates, they would become the overlords of the ancestral land. Star Venerates were the standard to measure a force's strength. Star Venerates were invincible existences. As long as they weren't Star Venerates, everyone else was like an ant. In their opinion, Grandmaster Xing wasn't even worth mentioning and could be easily killed. Junior sister, unless he's really the young master of the Jade God ancestral land, even if he has a unique Star Dharma idol, he can't be compared to Celestial Terminus Star-Lord. You made the wrong choice. Qin Yu shook her head. When she got the news, she thought Yi Tianyun had little chance of winning. She had seen the power of a Star Venerate. Grandmaster Xing and Yi Tianyun couldn't compare to Celestial Terminus Star-Lord with his current strength. In the depths of the Five Elements Mountain, the news spread quickly. The man guarding on the hillside opened his eyes, and the thick layer of dust on his body fell off. Good job. Celestial Terminus Star-Lord's tone was extremely cold, and his eyes were cold. I didn't expect that you would fall into the enemy's hands after leaving the Empyrean Terminus ancestral land for a while. What a bunch of good-for-nothings. Celestial Terminus Star-Lord turned his head and looked at a small grass on the side. There was only a little bit left before it was completely coated with a layer of gold. Then it would be a sign that it was completely mature. Soon. Just a little bit more, and the golden divine grass will be completely mature. Celestial Terminus Starlord's gaze was extremely cold. As long as I get the golden divine grass, I will be able to make further progress. It will help me build a solid foundation, and I will have a chance to break through to the Star Venerable realm in the future. Who dares to cause trouble? All of you must die. Celestial Terminus Starlord didn't take any action to leave. Instead, he continued to wait here. It didn't matter what happened to the Empyrean Terminus Ancestral Land. For him, as long as he made a breakthrough, it wouldn't be a problem for him to kill those bastards. To put it bluntly, as long as he was strong enough, he would not only be able to take back the Empyrean Terminus Ancestral Land, but also the surrounding forces would belong to him. Therefore, he couldn't leave. He still waited here quietly. Even if the Empyrean Terminus Ancestral Land was destroyed, he wouldn't feel any pain. He would only care about himself. When the news about Tianyun spread in the outside world, Celestial Terminus Starlord continued to travel forward in the carriage slowly. It was quite conspicuous to travel slowly in this area. Growl. All of a sudden, a giant beast pounced out of the fog on the side and pounced towards Celestial Terminus Starlord. Its giant body made the carriage look as thin as a leaf. Qing Shui was startled by the roar. When she looked outside, her face turned pale. It was a giant ice tiger pouncing toward them. As it pounced, it released cold air, which froze everything around it into ice sculptures. Its cultivation had reached the Star Master late stage, which was much stronger than Qing Shui's cultivation. Beast, lie down. Han Long snorted coldly. He raised his hand and smashed the ice tiger pouncing toward him into the ground. Its giant body didn't even have the strength to lift, and it was pressed firmly against the ground. Its cultivation was only at the Star Master late stage, so it was obvious that it couldn't be compared to Han Long. Your Excellency, I have subdued it. Han Long stood beside him respectfully. Chapter 1914. After circling the ice tiger once, Tianyun nodded in satisfaction. This was his first time seeing a giant beast, so he naturally had to observe it carefully. Beside him, Qing Shui was extremely envious. She was envious of how good it was to have power, as there was no need to worry about attacks from these giant beasts. It had to be said that any of the giant beasts that appeared were at least mid-stage or late-stage Star Masters. Those with weaker cultivations would definitely die if they came in alone. This was why they could not move around freely, and they could not stay here forever. If they were not careful, they would die here. Not bad, not bad. The giant beasts' bodies are really big. If they were tamed, they would have decent combat power. Tianyun narrowed his eyes. Unfortunately, his skills were too low-leveled, and he could not tame these giant beasts. His other skills were still at the lower realm level. For example, alchemy was at the level of the lower realm. Even if it could be used here, the level was too low, and he would not be able to cultivate anything useful. Beast taming techniques were more or less the same, and they could not tame such powerful giant beasts. If he wanted to improve, it was not impossible, but he would have to spend a lot of time and slowly move it up. He did not have that much time right now, and there were many things waiting for him to do. As long as the system fully evolved, he would be able to use star energy to level up. If he were like other cultivators and cultivated bit by bit, who knew how long it would take? That's enough. Let it go. Tianyun waved his hand, indicating for Han Long to let the giant beast go. Han Long did not ask any questions and immediately let it go. As long as it was Tianyun's orders, he would obey unconditionally. No matter what, he would obey absolutely. This was also why Tianyun had chosen him. He wanted absolute loyalty, and even more so, the kind that did not ask too many questions. Just do what I tell you to do, and why ask so many questions? Beside him, Qing Shui was stunned. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she obediently kept her mouth shut. Such a giant beast was full of treasures. How could he let it go just like that? This ice tiger was truly a treasure. If Xiao Chun could capture it, he would definitely be able to refine a furnace of good medicine. He could even use it to refine weapons. However, since they were all caught by Yi Tianyun, she naturally couldn't interfere. If he wanted to let them go, he could let them go. She didn't have the right to ask for anything. Yi Tianyun had his own reasons for letting these beasts go. After all, he had no need for them. In addition, perhaps in the future, when his beast taming ability improved, he would come over to capture it. When the ice tiger was released, it was stunned. It had never thought that it would be released. It thought that it would be killed. However, it did not hesitate. It turned around and fled into the fog, not stopping at all. It was naturally a good thing that they were let go, so why did they have to stop? After this interlude, they continued to move forward. However, they didn't go far before a few Master Xing intercepted them. You are the young master who killed our divine cauldron ancestral land's law enforcer? This time, there were 5 Master Xing judging from their clothes. There was no doubt that they were the Master Xing of the divine cauldron ancestral land. Yi Tianyun did not even get out of the carriage. He sat inside and asked, "That's me. What's the matter? I wonder which force you are from, or are you from the ancestral land of the Jade God?" The leading elder Ding Li flew down and arrived in front of the carriage with an indifferent expression. The few elders behind him were the same. The weakest of them was at the middle stage of Master Xing, while the leading elder Ding Li was at the late stage of Master Xing. Without this level of cultivation, he would not be qualified to be an elder. Ancestral land of the Jade God? Yi Tianyun laughed. It seemed that these people's brains were really broad. However, it was no wonder that they were so bold after seeing his astonishing strength. They must have some backing. Who knew that he didn't have any backing? Everything was made up by their imagination. If it wasn't for the ancestral land of the Jade God, they definitely wouldn't be so calm. They would have already pounced on him and beaten him up. It was hard for them to swallow the anger of killing 4 Master Xing enforcers. But when they thought that he might be a disciple of the ancestral land of the Jade God, they had no choice but to calm down. The slightest mistake could lead to death. If you are a friend from the ancestral land of the Jade God, please forgive us if we have offended you. If possible, we can use other things to make it up to you. As long as you like something, we won't take it from you. Elder Ding Li chose to lower his head and not resist. After all, they had heard the shocking news that the celestial terminus ancestral land had been destroyed. They all knew how powerful the celestial terminus ancestral land was. An area that even they couldn't destroy had been destroyed by Yi Tianyun. In their opinion, it was impossible to complete this mission without any background or helpers. Although he was quite strong and had his own star dharma, it was impossible for him to destroy the entire celestial terminus ancestral land by himself. Therefore, they concluded that the ancestral land of the Jade God must have helped. Although they didn't know why, it was possible that they wanted to expand their territory. Normally, the ancestral land of the Jade God wouldn't care about this place, but after thinking about it, they could only do so. Seeing their attitude, Yi Tianyun smiled. He had to admit that it was easy to get things done with power. He had studied the ancestral land of the Jade God and knew its power. It was a very powerful force, so it wasn't a big problem for them to lower their heads. In order to survive, it was okay to suffer a little. Especially when facing a force that was difficult to resist, they could only choose to lower their heads. As long as they don't provoke me, I won't kill anyone. You can rest assured about that. Yi Tianyun smiled. Qing Shui was stunned. Didn't Yi Tianyun's answer mean that he admitted that he was the young master of the ancestral land of the Jade God? If that was really the case, then his status would double in a row. Not to mention Qing Shui, even Han Long was stunned. Was Yi Tianyun really from the ancestral land of the Jade God? Thank you, young master. If you have any problems, just tell us. As long as we can do it, we will help you. Elder Ding Li heaved a sigh of relief. As long as Yi Tianyun let them go, everything would be fine. Coincidentally, I have something that I need your help with, Yi Tianyun said to them. What is it? Elder Ding Li asked. Help me find Celestial Terminus Lord. Do you know where he is? Yi Tianyun had come to find Celestial Terminus Lord. We know that. Elder Dingley nodded. Actually, many people know where he is. We will take you there now. They were shocked. They remembered the news that Tianyun was really going to kill Celestial Terminus Lord. Chapter 1915. As it turned out, they must have been thinking too much, and they were the kind of people who thought too much. Even if the Celestial Lord really came, he would not hide behind them, but come in openly. Well, take me there now. Tianyun waved his hand. Okay, we will lead the way for you now. Elder Dingley completely regarded him as the young master of the ancestral land of the Jade God. He had no choice but to think so. Tianyun was naturally happy to let them lead the way. Since they all thought so, he might as well make use of it. Under the guidance of Elder Dingley and the others, they flew towards Celestial Lord of Heavenly Terminus. They let the dragon horse soar and followed closely behind Elder Dingley. Elder Dingley, who was leading the way, cursed Tianyun countless times in his heart. They were the dignified elders of the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron, and they were ranked at the top, but they came to lead the way. If it were not for the fact that Tianyun was the young master of the ancestral land of the Jade God, they would have been too lazy to bring him along. In other words, the young masters of the other ancestral lands would not have shown any mercy. The ancestral land of the Jade God was much stronger than the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron. The two were not on the same level, so they could only choose to compromise. Along the way, Han Long and Qing Shui's expressions were different. They were still full of surprise. They never thought that Tianyun would be the young master of the ancestral land of the Jade God. Don't overthink it. I'm not from the ancestral land of Jade God. If they think I'm from the ancestral land of Jade God, then so be it. I just happen to lack a few people to lead the way. It would be perfect if I could fight with Celestial Lord of Heavenly Terminus. Tianyun shrugged his shoulders and said with a smile, I didn't mean to deceive them. If they want to think so, then I will follow their wishes. So that's how it is. Qing Shui almost burst out laughing. She showed an expression that said, You are very bad. The two of them really believed Tianyun's words. After all, Tianyun never lies. Who knew that he was lying this time? Thinking about how these elders had risked their lives all the way, if they knew that Tianyun wasn't the young master of the ancestral land of the Jade God, what kind of expression would they have? The few elders in front were still anxiously leading the way, worried that Tianyun would get angry. If that happened, they would be done for. Up ahead is where the Celestial Terminus Star Lord is. He's been guarding the golden divine grass, refusing to leave no matter what. When the time comes, there will definitely be many experts fighting over it. However, with Celestial Terminus Lord's ability, he should have a good chance of snatching it. Elder Dingley explained. Golden divine grass. Tianyun's eyes lit up. He had read about this stuff in various books. If it was refined and consumed, it would definitely strengthen one's foundation. There was also a certain chance that it could improve the Star Dharma idol. The golden divine grass was also known as the Star Venerable Grass. After taking it, one would have a great chance to break through and become a Star Venerable. This kind of divine grass would definitely be fought over by all the Star Lords. It seems that the Star Lords of the ancestral land of the Divine Cauldron are also eyeing this golden divine grass. Tianyun squinted at them. If you want it, then we definitely won't interfere. We will obediently give it up and not participate in the snatching, Elder Dingley said hurriedly. At the same time, he hoped that Tianyun would not be interested in the golden divine grass. They had been eyeing it for a long time and planned to snatch it from the Celestial Terminus Star Lord. Not only the Star Lords of the Divine Cauldron ancestral land, but the other Star Lords were also participating. It would definitely be an earth-shattering battle. However, if the ancestral land of the Jade God really got involved, they could only leave obediently. They did not want to die. Even if the number of Star Lords who came this time exceeded the ancestral land of the Jade God, they did not dare to go against the ancestral land of the Jade God. After all, they were all Star Lords, and they were also in the early, middle, and late stages. The Star Lords present were mainly in the early and middle stages. There were almost no late-stage Star Lords. The 3 Star Lords of the Jade God's ancestral land were all in the late stage. At the same time, their Star Dharma idol had reached above the 5th level. Who could compete with them? Don't worry, I won't snatch it. I just want Celestial Terminus Star-Lord's life, Lee Tianyun said indifferently. That's right, that's right. As long as the ancestral land of the Jade God makes a move, Celestial Terminus Star-Lord will die for sure. I can only say that he doesn't know how to appreciate favors. He actually dared to provoke the ancestral land of the Jade God. Elder Ding Li's eyes lit up. This was actually good. If Celestial Terminus Star-Lord was killed, then their chances of obtaining the Golden Divine Grass would greatly increase. You don't plan to help me get rid of this Celestial Terminus Star-Lord? Lee Tianyun frowned and put on a stern face. This Celestial Terminus Star-Lord is extremely powerful. We have to ask the Divine Cauldron Star-Lord. Elder Ding Li wiped his cold sweat. It was difficult to agree to such a request, but it was also difficult to refuse. The ancestral land of the Jade God asked them to help, but they did not. It would be very serious to settle accounts later. However, Elder Ding Li was very tactful. It was better to let the Divine Cauldron Star-Lord make the decision first. Then what are you waiting for? Lee Tianyun snorted coldly. It seemed that he really did look like the young master of the ancestral land of the Jade God. Yes, we will ask the Divine Cauldron Star-Lord. Elder Ding Li could only bite the bullet and ask for instructions. Seeing this situation, Han Long and the others were about to laugh out loud. It would be perfect if they really played a game of dog biting dog. Lee Tianyun saw this situation and shook his head. It seemed that the ancestral land of the Jade God was too high to defy. The saddest thing was that they did not even have the ability to verify it. It seemed that the ancestral land of the Jade God would be difficult to contact. Soon, the Divine Cauldron Star-Lord received the news. After seeing it, his face suddenly sank. Damn it, what is the young master of the ancestral land of the Jade God doing? Is he using us as cannon fodder? He was very angry and turned to look at Celestial Terminus Star-Lord in front of him. Although he was a mortal enemy of Celestial Terminus Star-Lord, he could not really fight to the death. He was afraid that other forces would benefit from it. He thought for a while and decided to see Lee Tianyun. No matter what, he had to see this young master. Immediately, he quickly flew away and flew outside. After a while, he saw Elder Ding Li and the others. This is the young master of the ancestral land of the Jade God? This is the first time we meet. He is really handsome, worthy of being the young master of the ancestral land of the Jade God. The Divine Cauldron Star-Lord landed on the side and an invisible pressure immediately shrouded them. The powerful power of the Star-Lord made Han Long and Qing Shui bend down, unable to even straighten up. Lee Tianyun did not have any problem, mainly because the pressure was specially restrained by the Divine Cauldron Star-Lord and was only released to the surroundings. How would he dare to do this to the young master of the ancestral land of the Jade God? Well, this is the first time we meet. Lee Tianyun looked at him and said calmly, So, have you decided to help me kill Celestial Terminus Star-Lord? As long as you help me get rid of Celestial Terminus Star-Lord, the ancestral land of the Jade God will definitely thank you. Chapter 1916. Lee Tianyun's request made the Divine Cauldron Star-Lord's eyes wander. No one knew what he was thinking. After a while, the Divine Cauldron Star-Lord sized him up and said doubtfully, It's not a big deal to ask for my help, but there are many experts in the ancestral land of the Jade God. The Celestial Terminus ancestral land was attacked. Why do you need our help this time? Isn't it a waste of the Jade God's ancestral land's resources? The destruction of the Celestial Terminus ancestral land had already reached the ears of the Star Lords. The reason why Lee Tianyun is not suspected of anything is mainly because of this, so people feel that Lee Tianyun's identity is not fake. Besides the Jade God's ancestral land, which force would be so arrogant to destroy an ancestral land so easily? Although the Divine Cauldron ancestral land wanted to attack the Celestial Terminus ancestral land, they needed a lot of preparation work. Moreover, They had to be wary of the revenge of the celestial terminus Star-Lord. They would not dare to do such a thing casually. He believed that the other ancestral lands were in the same situation and would not dare to attack at will. Only the Jade God's ancestral land would dare to be so unscrupulous. Although they did not know why they wanted to destroy the celestial terminus ancestral land, how could they guess what these experts were thinking? They have other things to do. It will be some time before they can come over. For example, the depths of the 5-element mountain. Yi Tianyun smiled faintly. Even in the face of the Star Lords, he behaved very naturally. He did not even blink when he lied. The depths of the 5-element mountain. The divine cauldron Star Lord narrowed his eyes. Even he did not dare to enter the depths of the 5-element mountain at will. There were too many secrets in the 5-element mountain. Even the Star Lords did not dare to act recklessly. Only Star Venerables could do whatever they wanted here. I see. But you can wait for them to come out. Even I can't intervene in the current situation. It's not that I don't want to agree, but there are many Star Lords now. If you can win over other Star Lords, you can fight. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord was not a fool. Even if he would be given benefits, he would not rush forward directly. It would not be easy to deal with the Celestial Terminus Star Lord, especially when he was alone. It would be extremely difficult to deal with him. If Shao Chun could rope in 1 or 2 more Star Venerates, he would definitely choose to help. How could he not agree to something that was already in the bag? He could get rid of Celestial Terminus Lord and help the ancestral land of the Jade God, so why not? But are you not confident in your own strength? Lianyun looked him up and down and smiled contemptuously. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord was furious, but he did not explode. He still maintained a calm expression. No, I have confidence. It's just that I want to deal with Heavenly Terminus Star Lord more perfectly. It would be better to have help. If there's one more person, the credit will be shared equally. Are you sure you want to do this? Besides, you're not the only one who wants to deal with Celestial Terminus Star Lord. Even if the others aren't roped in, they'll still deal with him, won't they? Yi Tianyun was a dark person, but he didn't want to provoke so many powers. The other forces currently had no enmity with him, so there was no need to provoke too many of them. What he didn't like was the Divine Cauldron Ancestral Land and the Celestial Terminus Ancestral Land, so he would definitely destroy them. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord's eyes narrowed. Lianyun was right. The credit would be shared equally. Besides, there were also people dealing with Celestial Terminus Star Lord. It was not a big deal for him to interfere. You still want the Golden Divine Herb, don't you? Yi Tianyun exposed the Divine Cauldron Star Lord's thoughts. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord was hesitant. He wanted to pull one more person out because he wanted the Golden Divine Herb. No Star Lord wouldn't be tempted. It could increase their chances of breaking through to the Star Venerable realm. Even if it was only a trace, they would fight for it. Yes, I want the Golden Divine Herb. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord said bluntly, they told me that you came here to kill Celestial Terminus Star Lord. You're not interested in the Golden Divine Herb. If possible, I want to get a piece of the Golden Divine Herb as well. No problem. Whoever takes the Golden Divine Herb, just make them spit it out. What do you think? Yi Tianyun smiled. What he said made the Divine Cauldron Star Lord tremble. This was really the overbearing style of the ancestral land of the Jade God. So what if the Golden Divine Herb was taken away? He could get it back. If he didn't give it to him, he would flatten him. This was the overbearing style of the ancestral land of the Jade God. This kind of thing was not uncommon, and the ancestral land of the Jade God had done it many times. Lianyun knew that the ancestral land of the Jade God was extremely overbearing. If they liked something, they would rob it openly. After robbing it openly, they would be even crueler. It would be a small matter if they destroyed an entire force. No problem. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord's eyes lit up. He didn't doubt Yi Tianyun's words at all. I'll definitely do it well. I'll sneak attack Celestial Terminus Star Lord when he's attacked. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord laughed. His eyes were full of pleasure. Finally, he could deal with Celestial Terminus Star Lord. Okay, I'll leave it to you. Lee Tianyun said with a faint smile, "I'm looking forward to your performance." The Divine Cauldron Star Lord nodded and immediately turned around to go back. Lee Tianyun didn't stay idle either. He followed them in. Watching the battle from the side wouldn't affect anything. Then they went in together, passed through the gap in front, and came to a crack in the corner. This place was full of rich metal power, much richer than outside. He had just come in when he saw a grass that was constantly emitting golden light. It looked very inconspicuous, and it was stuck on the edge of the cliff in front of him. The grass was inconspicuous, but the golden light it constantly emitted was extremely eye-catching. The whole space was enveloped by the golden light emitted by the grass. This was the golden divine herb. It was a very inconspicuous weed, but it was the famous golden divine herb. The more inconspicuous it was, the more powerful it was. However, it was inconspicuous mainly because the golden divine herb had not fully matured. Once it fully matured, it would have different changes. Next to the golden divine herb, there was a middle-aged man quietly meditating, waiting for the golden divine herb to mature. Celestial Terminus Star Lord. Lee Tianyun's eyes turned cold. As long as he killed Celestial Terminus Star Lord, all the slaves in the Celestial Terminus Ancestral Land would be liberated. His hometown would also be liberated, and there would be no more worries. Not only Celestial Terminus Star Lord, but there were also 3 other Star Lords on the side. Including the Divine Cauldron Star Lord, there were a total of 5 Star Lords. This meant that the masters of the 5 forces were all here. "Boy, how dare you come here?" Celestial Terminus Star Lord, who had his eyes closed, suddenly opened them. His cold and piercing gaze pierced through, staring straight at Lee Tianyun. Chapter 1917. Yes, so what if I'm here? If you have the ability, come and kill me for revenge. Tianyun stood where he was and smiled. He knew that Celestial Terminus Star Lord wouldn't dare to come over. His position was the best place to fight. If he left that region, the other star venerates would immediately occupy it. "All right, boy, just you wait. When I snatch this golden divine grass, you will die without a doubt. No matter where you escape to, no matter what force you belong to, you will die." Celestial Pole Star Lord snorted angrily and closed his eyes again. On the side, the Divine Cauldron Star Lord had a strange expression on his face, but in fact, he was laughing in his heart. He did not expect the Celestial Pole Star Lord to be so idiotic as to want to be enemies with Lee Tianyun. Lee Tianyun was the young lord of the Jade God Ancestral Land, who would dare to oppose him. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord felt that the Celestial Terminus Star Lord was dead for sure. He also felt that he was too ignorant and could not even guess this. He was really an idiot. The rest of the Celestial Lords also had a strange expression. They also guessed that Lee Tianyun was the young master of the ancestral land of the Jade God. Otherwise, how could he be so unscrupulous and powerful? They racked their brains and searched countless times, but they still couldn't figure out which faction had such a heaven-defying existence. As for going to the ancestral land of the Jade God to verify it, even if he had similar thoughts, he would have to go there to verify it. Currently, they were still waiting for the golden divine grass, so they did not have such thoughts. This was especially so when it had nothing to do with them. They could not be bothered to say anything more. They could not wait for the Celestial Pole Lord to be destroyed. This Celestial Terminus King didn't think that I was the young master of Jade God Ancestral Land? Lee Tianyun was a bit confused. Logically speaking, Celestial Lord of Heavenly Extremity should know something, but Celestial Lord of Heavenly Extremity didn't seem to think that he was the young master of Jade God Ancestral Land. As he was thinking this, the light released by the golden divine grass became more and more astonishing, as if it would explode at any moment. Soon, the last bit of green on the golden divine grass was covered in gold. The moment it covered the seemingly unremarkable golden divine grass, a phantom image suddenly appeared. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that it was the phantom image of a huge golden mountain. Next, the golden divine grass began to grow at a crazy rate. Originally, it was only a few inches tall. Now, it began to grow 1 zhang at a time. In the blink of an eye, it had reached a height of over 100 zhang. Not only did it grow extremely tall, but it was also spreading out in all directions. At this moment, it no longer looked like a small blade of grass, but rather a huge golden divine tree. Mature, it's about to mature. The many star venerates felt excited as they stared at the golden divine grass. This included the heavenly extremity star venerate, who clenched his fists tightly, preparing to snatch it. He had already set up a great formation here. This was his greatest advantage. With the support of the great formation, he really wouldn't have much confidence in snatching it away. Only Star Lord Divine Cauldron stared at Celestial Terminus Lord. He kept thinking about what Tianyun had said, which was to kill Celestial Terminus Lord and everything would belong to him. No matter who the golden divine grass belonged to in the end, wouldn't he still be the most popular one? Tianyun, who was watching from the outside, was amazed by this scene. This was the golden divine grass. It had been maintaining an unremarkable scene, and no one could discover it. At the final moment of maturity, it quickly burst out in its most perfect form. However, it had been discovered long ago. After all, there were many sharp-eyed experts, and Celestial Terminus Lord was one of them. Soon, when the golden divine grass had completely matured, the phantom image of the golden mountain in the void shrank and returned to the golden divine tree. At the same time, it began to shrink rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it had turned into an extremely mature golden blade of grass, one that had grown legs. After growing legs, the golden divine grass ran outside, turning into a golden ray of light. The mature golden divine grass was like a human. Naturally, it quickly escaped to avoid being caught. But how could it escape? Celestial Terminus Lord had already set up a great formation here. Once it matured, it would immediately seal the golden divine grass. Trying to escape? Impossible. Celestial Terminus Lord's eyes were filled with golden light. He quickly formed a seal with his hands, and the surrounding great formation surged. Several golden light pillars pierced down, nailing the golden divine grass in midair. Not to mention escaping, it was directly frozen in midair. In an instant, the golden divine grass was sealed, and it couldn't escape at all. It had been nurtured for tens of thousands of years, yet it was caught just as it matured. It had to be said that this was the fate of a divine medicine. The sealed golden god grass continuously twisted and turned, wanting to escape from the seal. However, with its strength, how could it escape? No matter how it writhed, there was no meaning to it. You are mine. Celestial Terminus Lord's eyes narrowed, and he reached out to grab the golden divine grass. As long as he put the golden divine grass into his pocket, everything would be over. He might not be able to fight against so many celestial venerables, but it wouldn't be a problem for him to escape. But at this moment, several beams of divine light pierced through and shattered the seal. The golden divine grass sensed that the seal was broken, so it immediately ran outside. You! Celestial Terminus Lord flew into a rage. He had guarded it for so long, so how could he let it go to waste? Celestial Terminus Lord, how could I let you enjoy such a good thing alone? Celestial Lord Pei Cheng, who was at the side, laughed loudly. He waved his hand, and a huge net, which could cover the entire deity realm of the lower realms, quickly descended. It seemed like they were also prepared for such an inescapable net. I have prepared for so many years. How could I let you ruin it? Celestial Terminus Lord roared, and he quickly took out his Star Dharma idol, releasing a level 5 Star Dharma idol. The power of a Celestial Lord immediately allowed him to control the power of the 5 directions. Celestial Terminus Lord was indeed powerful. He could control the power of the 5 directions, which immediately increased his combat strength by 10 times. Not only that, but he also had the support of the Great Formation, which immediately raised his strength to a whole new level. Scram! Celestial Terminus Lord erupted with a vast power, and a huge illusory battle wheel floated up. This battle wheel could release a blazing combat strength, which greatly increased his strength. Immediately, he grabbed at the void, and a huge battle wheel appeared in his hand. He waved it wildly, and an invincible light slashed out, turning everything it touched into ruins. In an instant, the surrounding celestial lords were shaken away. He was not injured, but it was already very impressive to be able to shake off the fierce attacks of several celestial lords. However, there was one who was not shaken away, and that was the Divine Cauldron Lord. A divine cauldron appeared behind the Divine Cauldron Lord, which offset the attack. At the same time, he also erupted with his strongest power, as if he was going all out, wanting to completely suppress Celestial Terminus Lord. Whoever suppresses Celestial Terminus Lord with me, when I get the golden divine grass, I will definitely give him half. Seeing that Celestial Terminus Lord was so overbearing, the Divine Cauldron Lord knew that it would be too late if he did not make a move. He originally wanted to sneak attack, but now it seemed like he could only face it head-on. Chapter 1918. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord's words shocked the other Star Lords. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord was obviously going all out. Not only did he use his full strength, but he was even willing to give up half of the golden divine grass. Generally speaking, the effects of the golden divine grass would be the greatest when consumed in its entirety. However, the effect of taking half of it was still not bad. Especially now that there were too many monks and not enough gruel, no one was willing to submit to the other. However, if the battle continued, it would be easy for both sides to suffer. If there were people working together, things would be different. If the two of them worked together, their chances of obtaining the treasure would greatly increase. In particular, the Divine Cauldron Lord's own strength was not bad. If they worked together, it would not be difficult to defeat the Heavenly Terminus Lord. The Sword Wind Star Lord held his long sword and created a sword wind that tore through the void. Divine Cauldron Star Lord, is that true? It's absolutely true. If I manage to snatch the golden divine grass, I'll definitely give you half. The heavens and earth can be my witness. The Divine Cauldron Star Sovereign stretched out 2 fingers and immediately swore an oath. It was a simple oath without too many deadly words. However, the twinkling of the stars in the sky meant that the oath had been successfully made. As long as it was violated, the Divine Cauldron Star Lord would definitely be severely punished by the heavens. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord naturally did not want to split the golden divine grass in half, but in order to give the ancestral land of the Jade God a good explanation, he could only choose to throw caution to the wind. After making such an oath, even if the Jade God ancestral land wanted the golden divine grass by force, half of it would be given to Star Lord Swordwind. His heart ached a little, but from the looks of it, this was all he could do. All right, then I'll join forces with you to deal with the Celestial Terminus Lord. The Swordwind Star Lord nodded and did not waste any time. He immediately took out his star aspect and a long sword appeared behind him. It created a whistling sword wind and cut through the void. The 2 star venerates working together made the heavenly pole star venerate's face sink. This was especially so since these 2 were not easy to deal with. Naturally, he had to take them seriously. As for revenge, he had long thrown it to the back of his mind. He was too lazy to even look at Etianyun. The 2 star venerates outside exchanged glances. Unless they also worked together, how could they snatch it? Let's work together. If we manage to snatch it, I'll give you half as well. All right, no problem. The 2 Star Lords outside immediately reached a consensus and formed a large camp. They were all forced to do this. They didn't want to join hands at first, because joining hands meant that they would have to split the profits. Now that the Divine Cauldron Star Lord and the Sword Wind Star Lord had joined forces, there was no reason for them not to join forces. Do you think you can deal with me by joining hands? How naive. Celestial Terminus Star Lord laughed out loud. The war wheel in his hand rotated again, and layers of power stacked on top of each other. The effect of the battle wheel was astonishing. As it rotated, its combat power would rise steadily. This effect increased as it became more compatible with the war wheel. It was a pretty good star aspect. No wonder the Celestial Pole Star Lord was so domineering, monopolizing a faction. It turned out that he really had great strength. Kill! The Divine Cauldron Star-Lord also took out his Divine Cauldron and fought head-on with his opponent. As the two sides clashed, energy fluctuations constantly spread out in all directions. Yi Tianyun's side had already retreated to the back, so the shockwaves didn't affect them. A battle between star sovereigns is truly too terrifying. Qing Xue was stupefied as she watched from behind. If she were to stand under this energy fluctuation, she would probably be easily shattered. How can we compare to the power of a celestial lord? We can't compare to the power of a celestial lord. Han Long was a little excited. He rarely saw celestial lords fight, especially so many celestial lords, which was even rarer. The biggest sign of a celestial lord was the number of celestial lords they controlled. The strongest among them was the celestial terminus star lord, who could control 5 celestial lords and 6 celestial lords. This meant that he had 12 times the power, which was extremely powerful. The other celestial lords only had 4 or 5 celestial lords star power, which was slightly inferior to the celestial terminus star lord. This was enough to prove that the celestial terminus star lord's control of power was stronger than theirs. In addition to the difference in cultivation, a celestial lord's control of the power was also the effect of controlling several celestial lords. If one's cultivation was weaker, one could make up for it by controlling more celestial lords. Some early-stage celestial lords could crush late-stage celestial lords by relying on this point. Rumor had it that some heaven-defying geniuses could sense the power of the stars very well. They could easily control more than 7 or 8 celestial lords, and the power they released was even more terrifying. The further they went, the more terrifying the superposition would be. Yi Tianyun nodded and smiled faintly as he watched them fight. He didn't even need to spend much effort to deal with the celestial lord. Then, the celestial lord was forced to retreat, and the golden divine grass floated around. No one could get it. However, it seemed that the Divine Cauldron Star Lord and the others had a higher chance of getting it. Damn it! I won't let you get it even if I die. The Celestial Lord activated his power again and charged forward. With a loud bang, the Divine Cauldron Star Lord and the others were sent flying and injured. The Celestial Lord was seriously injured, and his face was pale. It had to be said that the Celestial Lord was not simple to be able to fight his way out of the two Celestial Lords' battle. However, according to the situation, the Celestial Lord couldn't hold on for too long. If he continued, the golden divine grass would definitely be snatched away. Boom, boom, boom. The fierce collision set off a series of explosions. In the end, the Divine Cauldron Star Lord and the others suffered serious injuries. On the other hand, the Celestial Lord was already at his limit. If this continued, he would definitely die. The golden divine grass floated in the void and was not snatched away by anyone. The two Celestial Lords on the side watched covetously. They wanted to see who would win and then snatch it. This situation naturally made the Divine Cauldron Star Lord anxious. If this continued, he was afraid that someone would succeed and they would end up doing nothing. My guess was wrong. This Celestial Lord is too strong. How can his combat power be so abnormal? The Divine Cauldron Star Lord complained incessantly. He thought that it would be easy, but now it seemed that it was not easy at all. If this continued, he would not be able to hold on. It was the same for the Sword Wind Star Lord. He had attacked countless times, but the Celestial Pole Star Lord was able to withstand it. Young Master of the ancestral land of the Jade God, haven't the reinforcements arrived yet? The Divine Cauldron Star Lord turned his head and shouted at Yi Tianyun. In a moment of desperation, he could only seek help from Yi Tianyun. He wanted to help, but he couldn't guarantee that he could kill the Celestial Lord. It would be good if someone else could help, but now he was in an extremely awkward situation. You said he is the young master of the Jade God ancestral land? The Celestial Lord, who had been repelled, raised his hand and pointed at Yi Tianyun. Celestial Lord, it seems that you are really stupid. Have you become stupid after staying here? He is so talented, yet he can still destroy your ancestral land. Isn't he the young master of the Jade God ancestral land? The Divine Cauldron Star Lord sneered. Now, do you know who you have provoked? Ha! The celestial lord sneered. It seems that you have been fooled. He is not the young master of the Jade God ancestral land. Idiot! Chapter 1919. The moment the celestial pole star venerates said that, everyone was stunned, including the surrounding star venerates. Yi Tianyun's identity was fake? Fake? How is that possible? How could he have destroyed your celestial terminus ancestral land without a powerful backer? Star Lord Divine Cauldron didn't believe Celestial Lord's words. You call me an idiot? You're the real idiot, aren't you? Celestial Lord sneered. None of you are as familiar with the Jade God ancestral land as I am. I've seen the young master of the Jade God ancestral land, and I'm the one who works for it. It seems you're overthinking things. The celestial terminus ancestral land has been famous for a long time. Why hasn't it been destroyed by those seemingly righteous forces? Because they wouldn't dare to touch my celestial terminus ancestral land even if they had 10 guts. Celestial Terminus Star Lord said in a deep voice, I didn't expect that after so many years, an unknown brat would appear out of nowhere and destroy my celestial terminus ancestral land. I don't know which power you belong to, but you can destroy my power. But no matter what force it is, anyone who dares to provoke me and the Jade God ancestral land will die. Star Lord Divine Cauldron, I was wondering why you worked so hard. So you were instigated. It seems that being too low-key is a mistake. I've always tried to rely on my own strength to control everything. I don't want to rely on the power of the Jade God ancestral land. If I can become stronger with my own strength, the Jade God ancestral land will think highly of me and value me. I didn't expect that in the end, others would use the prestige of the Jade God ancestral land to deal with me. What a miscalculation. Celestial Lord looked coldly at Yi Tianyun and said, Kid, I really didn't expect you to be so good at fooling us. Star Lord Divine Cauldron, are you going to deal with me first this time? Bastard, how dare you lie to me? Star Lord Divine Cauldron roared and immediately turned his attack to Yi Tianyun. The invincible cauldron crazily expanded and turned into a towering cauldron. Celestial Lord didn't make an oath, so Star Lord Divine Cauldron immediately believed him. The main thing was that when he thought about it for a while, it was true. Only the Empyrean Terminus ancestral land did something inhumane, which was to enslave cultivators from the lower realms. Generally speaking, those who acted rashly would definitely not be able to tolerate it. However, the Empyrean Terminus ancestral land had always been safe and sound. No powers dared to provoke them. This proved that they knew that the Empyrean Terminus ancestral land had a backer. After figuring this out, the Divine Cauldron Star Lord immediately erupted and attacked fiercely, wanting to vent all his anger on Yi Tianyun. This time, he didn't even want the golden divine grass. He just wanted to kill Yi Tianyun to vent the anger in his heart. Brat, let's see what you can do this time. Celestial Terminus Star Lord snorted coldly. He didn't even need to personally take revenge. Someone else would help him deal with it. Qing Shui's face turned pale. She hadn't expected such a reversal. Celestial Lord of Celestial Terminus was the one who truly served the ancestral land of Jade God. Wasn't this the same as provoking the ancestral land of the Jade God? Not to mention Qing Shui, even Han Long was worried. Let's not talk about the ancestral land of the Jade God for the time being. The several Star Lords in front of him were enough to make him suffer. Didn't this mean that the plan had failed? Moreover, it was a complete failure, and he had also provoked two forces. Brat, you turned out to be a liar. Catch him. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord didn't attack him. The elders who had been watching from the side were furious. A large part of the responsibility for this kind of mistake was related to them. Now, they could only catch Yi Tianyun to make up for it. Several Star Masters rushed over. Due to their anger, they burst out with their strongest power, wanting to catch Yi Tianyun. Yi Tianyun didn't despair because of this, nor did he show an expression of unwillingness. Everything was within his expectations. From the beginning, he had planned to kill the celestial terminus Star Lord by himself. It didn't matter if the divine cauldron Star Lord helped or not. It was just that the ancestral land of the divine cauldron was also not a good person. Since they had provoked him, he would also be dragged into the water. Therefore, it was nothing to be seen through. To him, it wasn't that the plan had failed, but that the plan had never changed. How could it be considered a failure? Everything was just giving him another wave of star energy. This old servant. Han Long's body straightened, and he wanted to burst out with all his strength. Yi Tianyun stretched out his hand to stop him. In an instant, the phantom of the five-colored Emperor Dragon appeared behind him. He didn't even transform into his main body. He stepped forward into the void, and violent power splashed in all directions. Several elders who had rushed over were directly blown up and turned into a mist of blood. In the blink of an eye, several elders were easily beheaded, as if they were vegetables. However, the greatest enemy was still the divine cauldron Star Lord, who was the most terrifying existence. Brat, you have some ability, but everything ends here. Everyone below the Star Lord is an ant. The divine cauldron Star Lord quickly suppressed him. The huge divine cauldron pressed down, and there was no way to escape. The invincible giant cauldron was like an invincible divine mountain, enough to smash everything into meat paste. Although the unique star aspect was powerful, in the eyes of these great figures, before it grew up, everything was trash. If not for his fear of Yi Tianyun's identity as the ancestral land of the Jade God, he would have already made a move. Now that he knew that he had been tricked, he didn't have to worry about Yi Tianyun's life. Facing such pressure, the pressure on Qin Shui and Han Long doubled. They couldn't even stand up, and they directly knelt on the ground, unable to move. The power of a Star Lord was too strong, especially when the divine cauldron Star Lord used the star power from all directions to increase his own strength. Logically speaking, with such a gap, there was no need to use the star power above. However, the divine cauldron Star Lord was really mad with anger. If he wanted to kill, he would kill them all without leaving any room for maneuver. Is everything over? Qin Shui struggled to raise her head to look at Yi Tianyun. She saw that he was still standing straight, as if nothing could suppress him. My lord, quickly escape, don't worry about us. Qin Shui felt that Yi Tianyun didn't leave because he wanted to protect them, so he didn't run away. Escape? That doesn't exist. Yi Tianyun smiled faintly and said, I'll show you that Star Lords are not invincible, especially this kind of crazy Star Lord. In the next second, Yi Tianyun took a step forward, and his body immediately turned into a huge five-colored Emperor Dragon. At the same time, the stars above shone, and the star power of the five directions shrouded him, directly strengthening his strength. Five directions of star power? And it's Grandmaster Xing's cultivation? The Sword Wind Star Lord and the others were stunned. Grandmaster Xing could use star power, were they seeing things? However, it was not over yet. The huge five-colored Emperor Dragon Star aspect suddenly opened its mouth in the star domain, and actually devoured half of the divine cauldron Star Lord's star power. After devouring the star power of 2 directions, it immediately increased its star power from 5 directions to 7 directions. At the same time, the divine cauldron Star Lord's strength was immediately weakened. Chapter 1920. A large portion of the divine cauldron Star Lord's star power was immediately devoured, which was equivalent to weakening the divine cauldron Star Lord's strength by half. Not only was it weakened, but it could also increase one's own strength. This was the most terrifying ability. This was the first time they had seen such an ability, and everyone was dumbfounded. Even the heavenly terminus Star Lord was shocked by this scene. They had never seen such a heaven-defying ability. At most, it could suppress the other party's star power, but it was definitely the first time they had seen it devour the other party's star power. How is this possible? When the divine cauldron Star Lord felt his power sharply decrease, he was shocked. He had never expected such a situation to occur. The power of the divine cauldron Star Lord immediately weakened a lot. But even if it was weakened a lot, it was still the power of a Star Lord, and it was still extremely powerful. Even if it's weakened, it will still crush you to death. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord quickly recovered from his shock and slapped down again, without the slightest sign of weakening. If you're weakened, you'll become worthless. After Yi Tianyun transformed into the original body of the five-colored Emperor Dragon, he pressed down heavily. The huge dragon claw carried the star power of the seven directions, and it also carried a crazy damage mode. His power reached a new peak. In particular, the star power of the seven directions was no longer an ordinary superposition, but a superposition effect of 15 times in one go. From hexagonal star power onwards, there was a superposition effect of 3 times. Coupled with the crazy damage mode, it was a superposition of 27 times, which was absolutely unparalleled combat power. Especially with the power of the five-colored Emperor Dragon, it immediately surpassed the power of the Divine Cauldron. Especially since the Divine Cauldron Star Lord had been injured, the power he released was naturally not as strong as before. If he was at his peak state before, Eonyun would still be a little cautious, but unfortunately he had already been exhausted by the Heavenly Terminus Star Lord, so the effect was completely different. Boom! The huge Divine Cauldron was slapped away by his claw, and then the huge dragon claw continued to press down. The Divine Cauldron was slapped away, and even his own Star Dharma form was sent flying. What was left of the Divine Cauldron Star Lord? Impossible. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord looked at the dragon claw pressing down on him, and his heart was filled with horror. Yi Tianyun's cultivation was only that of a Star Master. How could he erupt with such terrifying power? How could he master star power? Before he could figure it out, Star Lord Divine Cauldron was killed by his palm. A Star Venerate who controlled the Divine Cauldron ancestral land, was slapped to death just like that. Before he died, he couldn't understand how Yi Tianyun could control such a powerful force. It was completely beyond their expectations. Not to mention him, the others who were still alive still had not figured out what was going on. Ding! Successfully killed the Divine Cauldron Star Lord. Obtained 12 million star energy points. Obtained Divine Cauldron Star, Level 5 Celestial Aspect. He did not drop any equipment, nor did he drop any special treasures. He simply dropped 2 big items. But that was enough. The shocking star energy points made his eyes light up. He was indeed worthy of being a big fat sheep. As for treasures, he could just plunder them from the Divine Cauldron Star Lord's storage ring. These Star Lords all had special storage rings that belonged to the very high-grade type. They could store too many things inside. Not bad, the harvest is quite rich. Yi Tianyun quickly returned to his original body, holding the Divine Cauldron Star Lord's storage ring in his hand. There were many treasures and martial arts inside the Divine Cauldron. It could easily control the treasures of a force, which was quite impressive. When this scene fell into the eyes of the others, they were completely stunned. If they were shocked by the fact that Yi Tianyun had devoured star power before, then now that the Divine Cauldron Star Lord was killed, they were completely dumbfounded. This was a star monarch, not a great Master Xing. Even if it was an injured Star Lord, it was still a Star Lord. The power released was far from what Star Master Xing could compare with. Han Long's performance was the best proof. From the moment the attack started, he felt that he had been suppressed, and he did not even have the strength to resist. He could only choose to escape, but Yi Tianyun did not leave, so how could he escape? Now, the legendary Star Lord, who was difficult to resist, had been killed by Yi Tianyun with a single slap. There was no too fancy of a battle, just a slap to death. He was not like the celestial pole Star Lord, who constantly attacked each other, and in the end, no one could do anything to the other. Now, he had been killed by a slap from Yi Tianyun. The difference between the two was obvious. Of course, all of this was because the Divine Cauldron Star Lord had been too careless, allowing Yi Tianyun to easily take him down. The Star Lord was killed. Qing Shui was stunned. She thought that he was dead for sure. No matter how heaven-defying Yi Tianyun was, it was impossible for him to fight against the Star Lord. Now it seemed that she was wrong. Yi Tianyun was still completely crushing his opponent with an invincible momentum. Yes, even the Star Lord was killed, His Excellency is invincible. Han Long's eyes were filled with horror. He had seen Yi Tianyun fight against the Guardians before, but the Guardians were Star Lords, not Star Lords. Those Guardian gods were on a completely different level from the Divine Cauldron Star Lord. Who knew that under such circumstances, Yi Tianyun could still crush the other party, which was extremely terrifying. Don't you want to kill me? You can come over now. Yi Tianyun's gaze shifted to the Celestial Pole Star Lord. Now that the Celestial Pole Star Lord had snatched the golden divine grass, no one snatched it from him since the Celestial Pole Star Lord revealed that his backer was the Jade God Ancestral Land. The Celestial Pole Star Lord's heart trembled. This was simply a freak. The other Star Lords looked at each other. They would not intervene and could only watch from the side. Anyway, they had no enmity with Yi Tianyun, and Yi Tianyun did not have the golden divine grass. Therefore, they would not make a move and could only watch from the side. If Yi Tianyun really killed the Celestial Pole Star Lord, they might make a move. After all, this way, the golden divine grass would be equivalent to an ownerless object, so they could naturally snatch it at will. Do you really think I'm an idiot like the Divine Cauldron Star Lord? The Celestial Pole Star Lord said coldly. The Divine Cauldron Star Lord was too careless. With him as an example, how could I lose to you? Today, I will use you as a blood sacrifice to let the world know that I, the Celestial Pole Star Lord, cannot be provoked. The battle wheel above the Celestial Pole Star Lord's head was released again, releasing rings of battle intent. The power that erupted was indeed far from what the Divine Cauldron Star Lord could compare with. The Celestial Pole Star Lord was originally stronger than the Divine Cauldron Star Lord. Otherwise, why would the Jade God Ancestral Land choose him to serve? When he released all his power, the Celestial Pole Star Lord laughed at himself. He did not expect that he would have to use all his power in the face of a Grandmaster Xing. No one would believe it. Outsiders who did not know the real situation would only feel that the Celestial Pole Star Lord was too weak to use all his power to deal with the Grandmaster Xing. Chapter 1921. The Celestial Terminus Star Lord unleashed his full strength, treating Yi Tianyun as a powerful Star Lord. Therefore, the power he unleashed far exceeded the Divine Cauldron Star Lord's previous power. In addition, the Celestial Terminus Star Lord was already very strong, not something the Divine Cauldron Star Lord could compare to. Qin Shui and the others trembled. This time, the Celestial Terminus Star Lord was not in the same situation as the Divine Cauldron Star Lord. He was going to unleash his full strength. Previously, the Divine Cauldron Star Lord was careless, but this time, the situation was completely different. "Milord." Qin Shui looked at Yi Tianyun with worry in her eyes. The other Star Lords looked at the situation, wanting to see what the final result would be. Would Yi Tianyun win, or would the Celestial Terminus Star Lord win? This brat is doomed. If he could hide for a while and come out, he would definitely be invincible. Taking advantage of the Divine Cauldron Star Lord's carelessness to kill him, he is too arrogant. Yes, if he could hide for a while, he could really become a demonic genius. He is already so strong now. What if he breaks through to the Star Venerate level? At that time, most of the Star Lords would not be able to compete with him. Unfortunately, everything ends here. We can only watch the golden divine grass. We came in vain. The Star Lords shook their heads, feeling that everything was so unfortunate. Not only would it be a pity that they could not obtain the golden divine grass, but it would also be a pity that such a genius would die. If he became a disciple of their faction would really have another super genius. This was a unique stellar Dharma phase, an existence that could control stellar power before reaching the Star Venerate level. It was definitely 1 in a trillion. At least, they had never seen it before. Now that he was about to be killed, they could not help but sigh. If the Celestial Terminus Star Lord was not backed by the Jade God Ancestral Land, they would really want to save Yi Tianyun. Unfortunately, they were facing the Jade God Ancestral Land, an existence that they could not provoke. If they provoked it, it would not be worthwhile to destroy their own ancestral land for a genius. Come on, devour my stellar power. The celestial terminus Star-Lord stared at Lee Tianyun. At the same time, he was very worried that his stellar power would be devoured. Devour your stellar power? There's no need. Lee Tianyun looked up at Empyrean terminus Star-Lord and said casually, I don't need to absorb your astral power to deal with you. It will only dirty my hands. How arrogant. Since that's the case, then go to hell. Celestial Lord Celestial Terminus sneered and pressed down from the void. Boundless power stacked on top of each other as the invincible war wheel attacked once again. This was an existence that could knock back 2 star venerates. Now that it suppressed him, how could Lee Tianyun resist? Lord, quickly devour their astral powers. Qin Shui and the others were anxious. Devouring their astral powers would greatly weaken their opponent's strength. If he didn't devour it, the other party would definitely go all out. At that time, it would definitely not be easy to deal with. The gap between their cultivation bases was already there, let alone going all out. Lee Tianyun's eyes flashed and he smiled. The energy in his body circulated crazily. Breakthrough. Ding! Congratulations to player Tianyun for successfully breaking through to Star Venerate. After deducting a large amount of star energy, he successfully broke through to the Star Venerate level. Among all the Star Venerates, this was an insurmountable peak. Now, he easily surpassed it and charged into the Star Venerate level. When he broke through to the Star Venerate level, a surge of energy soared into the sky. In the star region above the 9 heavens, a 5-colored Emperor Dragon soared and roared. Dragon might suppress the world. The energy in Lee Tianyun's body continued to rise. The 5-colored Emperor Dragon in his body also expanded, and its strength increased significantly. He broke through to the Star Venerate level? They were all stunned. When they felt this familiar aura, they immediately knew that Lee Tianyun had broken through to the Star Venerate level. He broke through at the drop of a hat, without any warning. Qin Shui and the others, who were behind Lee Tianyun, felt it the most intensely. The previously unrivaled Star Venerate level energy was now attacking them. However, this time, the Star Venerate level energy did not belong to anyone but Lee Tianyun himself. The celestial terminus Star-Lord's eyes narrowed, but his attack did not weaken. Instead, it seemed to be strengthened. He did not know how Lee Tianyun did it, but he knew that he had to finish off Lee Tianyun quickly. He was already so heaven-defying without breaking through to the Star Venerate level. If he really broke through to the Star Venerate level, the celestial terminus Star-Lord would not be able to contend against him. Therefore, he wanted to take advantage of the time when Lee Tianyun had not completely consolidated his cultivation to launch the strongest attack. However, his wishful thinking was all wrong. Today, I am a Star Venerate. Lee Tianyun's figure rushed out of the divine light. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at the void. The seemingly small hand tore the void and tore a starry sky, star power from the 8 directions. When he broke through to the Star Venerate level, he could actually control the star power from the 5 directions to the 8 directions. Superimposing the star power from the 8 directions on the original Star Venerate level was absolutely explosive. He did not even need to transform into the 5-colored Emperor Dragon. With his own strength, he could tear the sky apart with one hand. He did not need any weapons. He only relied on his hand to grab the falling battle wheel in the void. He held it firmly, so that the celestial terminus Star-Lord could not suppress it at all. This is your strength? Lee Tianyun smiled disdainfully. I gave you so much time to prepare, and this is all you can show me? You are too weak. Get down. He stretched out his hand and crushed the battle wheel in the void. At the same time, he slapped the celestial terminus Star-Lord into the ground. With a series of bombardments, a huge pit appeared in the ground. The celestial terminus Star-Lord collapsed on the ground, unable to move. There was not a single part of his body that was unharmed. His internal organs were all shattered. He was not dead, but his injuries were extremely serious. The celestial terminus Star-Lord had already suffered serious injuries when he fought with the divine cauldron Star-Lord and the others. Now that he was hit by Yi Tianyun's palm, he was half crippled. Yi Tianyun quickly landed beside the Celestial Terminus Star-Lord and quickly made a few hand seals on the Celestial Terminus Star-Lord's body. Soon, he used a tyrannical power to forcibly seal the Celestial Terminus Star-Lord's power. Then, he dragged the Celestial Terminus Star-Lord up and looked at him with a smile. "Didn't you say you wanted to kill me? Why can't you kill me now?" The Celestial Terminus Star-Lord's face turned ashen. He did not expect that he would end up in the hands of Yi Tianyun. This was a great humiliation. "Do you think that you can really control the Celestial Terminus Ancestral Land by killing me? I am from the Ancestral Land of the Jade God. If you kill me, the Ancestral Land of the Jade God will definitely send people to kill you." Not only did the Celestial Terminus Star-Lord not beg for mercy, but he also started to threaten. "Why do you think I kept you alive? It was because I wanted to ask about the Ancestral Land of the Jade God." Yi Tianyun sneered. "Otherwise, do you think you could have lived until now?" Then, he turned his head and looked at the Celestial Lords beside him. His eyes were cold. "If any of you want to continue fighting, come forward." Chapter 1922. Yi Tianyun became more violent after breaking through to the Star-Lord realm. The other Star-Lords had to consider whether they were qualified to compete with Yi Tianyun or not. Besides, it was not necessary. Yi Tianyun had already suppressed the Celestial Pole Star-Lord. He would be hunted down by the Ancestral Land of the Jade God. It was impossible for him to escape. The Ancestral Land of the Jade God would investigate this matter. After all, the Celestial Pole Star-Lord was a member of the Ancestral Land of the Jade God. If Yi Tianyun killed the Celestial Pole Star-Lord, he would be hunted down. But if he didn't kill the Celestial Pole Star-Lord, he would be hunted down by the Ancestral Land of the Jade God. It seems we don't have any hope of getting the Golden Divine Herb. Even if we snatch it, the Ancestral Land of the Jade God will take it back. Let's go. We might as well go to the Five Elements Mountain to explore. Maybe we can find something better. The Star-Lords chose to leave one by one. They didn't intend to snatch the Golden Divine Herb anymore. For them, this was already hopeless. Han Long and the others looked at this side in a daze. Not only did he kill the Divine Cauldron Star-Lord, but he also suppressed the Celestial Pole Star-Lord easily. Especially when he broke through to the Star-Lord realm. Wasn't it said that it was extremely difficult to break through to the Star-Lord realm? Why did Yi Tianyun break through so easily? It was like drinking water. This really surprised them, but they were even more pleasantly surprised. They had thought that Yi Tianyun would lose, but now he had won. However, after the pleasant surprise, they became very worried. No matter whether they killed the Celestial Pole Star-Lord or not, they had become enemies with the Ancestral Land of the Jade God. This matter would not be easy to solve. The Ancestral Land of the Jade God was very famous. Any force would feel terrified when they heard it. They would not dare to resist. The Ancestral Land of the Jade God was a 3-star lord, and it was not as simple as they thought. It was said that the Ancestral Land of the Jade God had a grade 6-star Dharma aspect. Although it was not as special as the unique star Dharma aspect, a grade 6-star Dharma aspect was still invincible. The unique star Dharma aspect of the past generations was not absolutely invincible. It was usually the level 6-star Dharma aspect that was invincible in the world. Now it's time to settle the score. Those slave marks in the Empyrean Pole Ancestral Land were all arranged by Yushin Ancestor, right? Tianyun did not kill him because he thought of this. Originally, the two had nothing to do with each other, but when the Celestial Terminus Lord said that he was working for the Jade God Ancestral Land, he thought of the Jade God Ancestral Land. It was very likely that the slave imprints of the Empyrean Terminus Ancestral Land were set up by the Jade God Ancestral Land. It seems you're not stupid. The slave imprints of the Celestial Pole Ancestral Land were indeed set up by the Jade God Ancestral Land. Celestial Pole Star-Lord sneered. So, are you afraid now? He even controlled the Celestial Pole Ancestral Land and removed the slave imprint. He was truly capable. I believe this matter will soon reach the ears of the ancestral land of Jade Divinity. You won't even know how you died then. Yi Tianyun's eyes turned cold. He grabbed Heavenly Terminus Star-Lord's neck and lifted him up, exerting pressure on Heavenly Terminus Star-Lord. Since Heavenly Terminus Star-Lord's power was sealed, he was no different from an ordinary person. When the power pressed down, Heavenly Terminus Star-Lord's face turned red, as if he was suffocating to death. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? Yi Tianyun sneered. I thought you were the one who arranged the slave imprints. As long as I killed you, the slave imprints would disappear. It seems that the real culprit is the Jade God Ancestral Land. The Jade God Ancestral Land really hid it well. There is no news about it outside. Do you think you're a righteous person? It's useless to kill me if you want to remove all the imprints of the Celestial Pole Ancestral Land. If you're so capable, go and destroy the Jade God Ancestral Land. Heavenly Terminus Star-Lord laughed in a hoarse voice, not caring about his own life at all. If you really go, I believe it won't take long for you to be completely suppressed. You trash. Of course, Heavenly Terminus Star-Lord was not afraid of death. As a superior, his dignity was always more important than his own life. All right, you can die now. Yi Tianyun stretched out his hand and squeezed. His power poured into Heavenly Terminus Star-Lord's body, causing his body to explode. A bona fide Star Venerate died just like that. Heavenly Terminus Star-Lord's death meant that the Celestial Pole Ancestral Land had lost its ruler, and he had become the real ruler. However, it was not over yet. If he wanted to truly liberate the Celestial Pole Ancestral Land without any future troubles, he had to eradicate the Jade God Ancestral Land. The spearhead suddenly shifted from Heavenly Terminus Star-Lord to the Jade God Ancestral Land, a force that many forces did not dare to provoke. In this area, the Jade God Ancestral Land was the big boss. Who could resist it? Your Excellency, I'm afraid we're going to provoke the Jade God Ancestral Land. Han Long flew over with Qing Shui and landed next to Yi Tianyun. He looked worried. So be it. Since the Jade God Ancestral Land is the real culprit, we'll just destroy it. Yi Tianyun flicked his fingers and said calmly, let's go and explore the 5 Elements Mountain. There is something I want in there. Yes, Your Excellency. Han Long didn't say much. Besides worry, there was more excitement in his eyes. He was also a hot-blooded man, and he was not a coward. In a sense, he had already died once. Since he was a member of the team of extermination, he had lost his freedom and couldn't control himself. He was basically dead. Now he was rescued by Yi Tianyun. If it were not for Yi Tianyun, he would not have come back to life. Although the Jade God Ancestral Land was terrible, he would still follow Yi Tianyun to kill them. At the thought that the Jade God Ancestral Land had caused the situation, he was even angrier. Then they continued to take the carriage to the 5 Elements Mountain. Qing Shui had a complicated look on her face. She thought Yi Tianyun was strong, but he seemed so small in front of the Jade God Ancestral Land. The Jade God Ancestral Land was a huge force. It had 3 Stars Lords, but it also had many strong people. There were hundreds of Star Masters alone. As for Star Masters, there were as many as dogs. Especially the Star Venerables. If they took out a Star Venerable's treasure and released it, it would be equivalent to having the support of a Star Venerable. At that time, would Yi Tianyun still be able to deal with them? News of what happened here quickly spread outside and exploded among the various forces. They were all shocked by the news. Especially when they learned that the Celestial Terminus Ancestral Land had an affair with the Jade God Ancestral Land, they knew that Yi Tianyun was doomed. Qing Yue and the others, who had wanted to establish a good relationship with Yi Tianyun through Qing Shui, turned pale when they heard the news. Among them, the elder level immediately threw out a sentence, informing all the clansmen that they can never have anything to do with Yi Tianyun. Qing Shui is no longer a member of the clan. What she does outside has nothing to do with the clan. Chapter 1923. Currently, there are no forces that have a relationship with Yi Tianyun. Originally, there were some forces that wanted to make friends with Yi Tianyun. When they heard the news, they hurried to change their plans. Qing Shui's side was the most miserable. She had wanted to win her over unconditionally and build a good relationship with Yi Tianyun. After all, someone who could kill 2 star venerates was an extremely heaven-defying existence. But when they heard about the ancestral land of the Jade God, they changed their expressions. It was undeniable that Yi Tianyun was strong. If he could kill 2 star lords, how could he not be strong? But no matter how strong he was still powerless in front of the ancestral land of the Jade God. They were all star lords, but the star lords in the ancestral land of the Jade God were more dreadful. They could be called star lords. That was the inheritance of a star lord. Those star lords must have obtained the corresponding inheritance. The star lords in the ancestral land of the Jade God could rival those in the middle stage in the early stage. As for those in the late stage, they were even more dreadful. Under such circumstances, everyone believed that Yi Tianyun would definitely lose. Not even the unique star Dharma idol. In their opinion, unless Yi Tianyun hides and cultivates for 10,000 years, there is still a little chance for him to come out. But it was just a chance. After all, the ancestral land of the Jade God had the inheritance of a star lord. The strength of a star lord was the main reason. It was said that a star lord was so strong that no force could rival a star lord. An attack from a star lord was enough to destroy half of the ancestral land. More importantly, a star lord could make laws with his words. He could decide life and death with a glance, and he could even set rules. The slave mark of the celestial pole ancestral land had a similar effect. If he wanted to break it, he would have to break the law of nature. However, Tianyun's 5-color emperor dragon had a strong law of nature. That was why he could break the slave mark easily. Yi Tianyun and the others in the depths of the 5 Elements mountain didn't know what was going on outside. Qing Shui didn't know she had been abandoned. She couldn't go back even if she wanted to. If they appeared, they would be captured by their own families and sent to the ancestral land of the Jade God for punishment. That was why the Jade God ancestral land was so famous. It was so powerful that it made all the other powers tremble. Anyone who provoked the Jade God ancestral land would have to pay any price. Even if the patriarch injured someone from the Jade God ancestral land, he would be tied up and sent to the Jade God ancestral land. If they didn't do this, they would suffer the calamity of extermination. The carriage was still moving slowly in the 5 Elements mountain. Everything was going smoothly. Qing Shui didn't know what Yi Tianyun was looking for. Wasn't it enough to get the golden divine grass? The golden divine herb could increase one's chances of breaking through to the star venerable realm. If it had been other practitioners, they would have left long ago instead of staying in this extremely dangerous area. But she didn't ask. She didn't know why Yi Tianyun continued to go in. She didn't dare to ask questions like before. She couldn't even breathe when she was facing a star lord, let alone ask questions casually. Great. It's just ahead, Yi Tianyun suddenly said. Qing Shui was startled. What's ahead? Qing Shui turned her head hurriedly, but she didn't see anything. She could only see white fog and nothing else. It's an opportunity for you, Yi Tianyun said with a faint smile. I told you. I said it's an opportunity for you, so it's an opportunity for you. Under Han Long's control, the carriage quickly broke through the fog and arrived inside. As soon as they broke through the fog and entered, they heard people talking inside. It seemed there were many people there. At this moment, Qing Shui saw that there were many star masters here, and there were also many star masters. There were at least dozens of star masters. As for star masters, there weren't many. They were all geniuses of some families. There was a divine tree in the area surrounded by them. There were 3 spiritual fruits on the tree. They were glowing with a faint blue luster. They were about to ripen. Their arrival attracted a few gazes, but that was all. They didn't know what was happening outside. Communication was sealed here, so they didn't know that Yi Tianyun had killed 2 star venerates. If they knew, they wouldn't be so calm. Another group of people came from who knows where. They even dare to ride carriages in. I wonder if they are bold or just idiots. A star master snorted coldly but ignored them. Their gazes focused on the divine tree in front, waiting for the spiritual fruits to ripen. This is a rare water spirit fruit. If consumed, it will improve one's physique significantly. It is especially effective for water-attributed physiques. When Qing Shui saw this fruit, she covered her mouth in shock. Her eyes filled with envy. It's elder Qing Shuiyu, senior sister Qing Meng, and senior brother Qing Dan. She saw familiar people here. Senior sister Qing Meng and senior brother Qing Dan had pretty good talent. Hence, they were brought here to snatch the water spirit fruit. After consuming it, they would definitely improve their strength significantly. As for her, she didn't have the qualifications. She didn't even have the qualifications to come here. Now that she could come and take a look, it was already pretty good. However, for so many Star Masters, 3 water spirit fruits was a situation where there were too many monks and not enough gruel. It was very troublesome to snatch them. If I can get 1 water spirit fruit, I will definitely improve a lot. Qing Shui had a look of envy and her eyes were filled with desire. The opportunity one I'm talking about is for you to go and get 1 water spirit fruit. Of course, if you want 2 water spirit fruits, you are also allowed to take them. Yi Tianyun smiled faintly. What? Qing Shui was dumbfounded. She thought that Yi Tianyun was here to snatch the water spirit fruit. She didn't expect him to bring her here to snatch the water spirit fruit. After the shock, she pointed to herself and said, "My lord, you are saying that the water spirit fruit is for me?" "That's right. You can go and get the water spirit fruit yourself. I can block the rest of the cultivators for you. However, you have to get the water spirit fruit yourself. This is a little difficult for you. However, if you can't even pass this level of difficulty, it will be detrimental to your future cultivation." Yi Tianyun smiled faintly and said, "The surface of the divine tree in front of them was rippling with the power of water. If they were to go near it, they would definitely be attacked. It was very likely that they would be sent flying. However, with a little effort, it would not be a problem." The opportunity that Yi Tianyun was talking about did not mean that he would help in the whole process. He was only helping to block those Star Masters. Whether or not he could get the water spirit fruit was another matter. "I can do it." Qing Shui nodded her head heavily. Her eyes were filled with determination. It was not easy to fight for an opportunity. Even if she had to risk her life, she would get the water spirit fruit. "And as long as you have this confidence." Yi Tianyun smiled faintly and shifted his gaze to the front. "Your clan's elder has noticed this side. It seems that he has recognized you." Chapter 1924. Junior Sister Qing Shui, why are you here? After Qing Meng and the others came over, they looked at Qing Shui in confusion. The 5 Elements Mountain was not open. How could Qing Shui come in? But thinking about it carefully, it was almost time to open. It was not surprising that she would open the door early. If the door was not open, there was only one possibility for her to come in at this time. She was brought in by an expert. That was, Master Xing brought her in. But when they looked ahead, they saw an old man and a young man. The old man looked very inconspicuous. They guessed that his cultivation was average, at most at the level of a Star Master. As for the young man, it was impossible for him to be a Master Xing. How could he be a Master Xing at such a young age? Therefore, they were immediately classified as ordinary people. But they did not know why they happened to come in with Qing Shui. Elder Qing Shuiyu, senior sister Qing Meng, senior brother Qing Dan. I came in with the Lord. Qing Shui did not hide anything from them. She was full of respect for her senior brothers and sisters, so she would not lie. The Lord? They looked at Yi Tianyun up and down in surprise. He did not look like an adult. They would believe it if he said he was a big man. The Lord was a respectful title for a superior. Did this young man deserve to be called that? But when they looked at Han Long, it was very likely that he was called Han Long. He looked like a bad old man. Maybe he really had some skills. Nonsense. Do you think you can come in so casually? Get out quickly. Even if someone brought you in, you can't come in casually. It is very dangerous here. When the water spiritual fruit ripens, it will be very chaotic. Not everyone can take care of you. Elder Qing Shuiyu shouted and asked Qing Shui to leave quickly. He glanced at Han Long and vaguely felt a power at the level of a Master Xing. Then he immediately knew that Han Long was a kindred spirit. His cultivation was probably at the level of a Master Xing. Although Qing Meng and the others could not see it, it did not mean that Elder Qing Shuiyu could not see it. As an elder, he was very dissatisfied with Qing Shui coming in with others. Especially when he was an outsider, he was filled with hostility. As long as he entered, he would be an opponent. Later on, he would definitely be a formidable opponent for the water spirit fruit. Qing Shui glanced at Yi Tianyun. Just as she was about to say something, Tianyun interrupted. I will protect her. You don't have to worry about that. Just take good care of your disciple. Yi Tianyun's expression was indifferent. He didn't have a good impression of this family, but he didn't have a bad impression either. In any case, he was here to give Qing Shui some good fortune. He couldn't be bothered with anything else. You sure talk big at such a young age. Elder Qing Shuiyu snorted coldly and said, I don't know which force you are from, but you brought our clan's disciples in at will. What are your intentions? Could it be that you are a playboy and have taken a fancy to our Qing Shui? If you have taken a fancy to our Qing Shui, then don't use this little trick. If you are not strong enough, you will kill people. As he spoke, he looked around. There were dozens of Xing masters here. Even if Han Long next to him was a Xing master, he could only be one of them, not the only one. Elder Qing Shuiyu, it's not like that. You can't say bad things about His Excellency. He has done me a favor, and I can't afford to associate with him. Qing Shui was so scared that her face turned pale. She didn't expect her elder to say that. After all, the person in front of her was a Star Lord. He was a Star Lord, not a Xing master. Even if there were hundreds of Xing masters, they could only stand aside, let alone dozens of Xing masters. Now that he said that, she was even more scared. What if Yi Tianyun was displeased and flattened her family? Little junior sister Qing Shui, you can't say that. Your talent is not bad. Even if you marry into a big family, or even an ancestral land, you can marry into a good family. How can you belittle yourself like this? Senior sister Qing Meng looked at Tianyun up and down, frowned, and said, Young master, which force are you from? Are you here to gain experience? Or do you have some other purpose? Qing Meng didn't have a good impression of Yi Tianyun. She always felt that he was here to abduct her junior sister. Yi Tianyun pointed forward and said indifferently, I'm here to give her a chance. Let her take one water spirit fruit, or all of them. It's up to her. What a big tone. Senior Qing Dan, who was at the side, couldn't stand it anymore. They were about the same age, but he had such an arrogant tone. This made him very unhappy. How many Grandmasters Xing are there here? Even if you brought a strong helper, you can't talk big, right? It's fine if you want to die, but don't drag our junior sister down with you, okay? They were rather concerned about Qing Shui, mainly because they saw an outsider. Naturally, they were united against that outsider. Normally, they were only considered average. Their gazes were cold, and they felt some disgust for Yi Tianyun. They hated people who exaggerated things, and they hated people who boasted even more. They felt that Yi Tianyun was just boasting, using flowery words to attract their junior sister. No, Milord didn't harm me. He really wanted to bring me here to take the water spirit fruit. Qing Shui quickly stood up and explained, Elder, senior brother, senior sister, Milord definitely wouldn't harm me. He is very strong and he can bring me to take the water spirit fruit. How strong? Could he be a star venerate? Here, unless he is a star venerate, there is no guarantee. Qing Meng said coldly, Junior sister, wake up. I know you are kind-hearted, but you can't trust people so easily. You guessed right. I am a star venerate. Yi Tianyun said calmly, that's enough to protect your junior sister, and you are strong enough to take the water spirit fruit, right? If you are a star venerate, I am a star venerate. Senior brother Qing Dan sneered and snorted disdainfully. To be honest, if it weren't for Qing Shui, what you said would have been enough for you to die several times, Yi Tianyun said calmly. You are really arrogant. Brat, Believe it or not, I'll slap you. Senior brother Qing Dan was angry. He didn't believe that his opponent could be stronger than him. Qing Shui was so scared that she quickly stepped forward to stop him. She said, "Senior brother Qing Dan, don't talk nonsense. He really is a star venerate. Qing Shui, you are really?" Elder Qing Shuiyu shook his head. He thought she was too gullible. How could someone so young be a star venerate? When they were about to continue talking, the tree in front of them started to turn dark blue. The water spirit fruit was about to ripen. The water spirit fruit is about to ripen. Let's go and prepare it. Elder Qing Shuiyu looked at Qing Shui meaningfully. Take care of yourself. Qing Meng also looked in this direction. She clenched her teeth and said, "Junior sister, leave this place quickly. Don't trust others too much." Pumph. Qing Dan snorted coldly and followed up without saying anything. They still had important things to prepare. Sir, please don't blame them. They are really doing this for my sake." Qing Shui was so scared that she knelt down immediately. "Just this once. Don't do it again." Yi Tianyun looked calm and didn't blame them. If they offended him again, they would be smashed into a pile of meat paste. Chapter 1925. Thank you, my lord. Qing Shui stood up, trembling. She knew that Yi Tianyun was very easy to talk to, but some things were not so considerate. Speaking like this in front of a Star Lord, one would not even know how to die. Yi Tianyun looked up at the water spirit fruit in front of him and maintained his smile. "How many water spirit fruits do you want? 1, 2, or 3? It's up to you." "One is good, one is good." Qing Shui's eyes lit up. She did not dare to be too greedy. One was enough. No matter what, she did not even dare to think about the water spirit fruit before. It was an extremely rare fruit. Especially when she saw so many star masters here, it was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to snatch it. If not for the fact that Yi Tianyun was a Star Lord, she really did not believe that Yi Tianyun could help her obtain the water spirit fruit. But get ready later. I will protect you. No one will be able to get close to you. The rest is up to you. If you can't get it, it's your own problem. Yi Tianyun's expression was indifferent. Qing Shui nodded heavily. No matter what, she had to get this water spirit fruit with all her might. While they were preparing, Qing Meng and the others frowned at the side, feeling displeased. Little junior sister is still not leaving. It seems that she has really been bewitched by that brat. Qing Meng shook her head. Forget it. Don't bother about her. This is her own choice. When the time comes, it's her own problem. Elder Qing Shuiyu said indifferently, with a star master by his side, that brat is definitely not from an ordinary family. He should also be here to train. But what's the use in a situation where there are so many star masters? Elder Qing Shuiyu revealed a disdainful smile. They had 2 star masters on their side. The other elder had been guarding in front, maintaining a good position, waiting for the opportunity to snatch it. Compared to Tianyun's side, they were more confident. Their goal was to snatch 1 water spirit fruit. As for 2 water spirit fruits, the difficulty was simply too high. It's about to ripen. Get ready to snatch it. Elder Qing Shuiyu's face darkened. A long sword immediately appeared in his hand. He was ready to rush over and snatch the water spiritual fruit. As for the 2 of them, they could only watch from the back, waiting for the elders to snatch the water spirit fruit. In their hearts, they naturally hoped to be able to snatch 2 water spirit fruits. If they could only snatch one, they could only split it in half. The water spirit fruit was so precious, if only one of them ate it, the other would really be helpless. Both of them were outstanding geniuses of the clan, so it was naturally impossible for them to give up on either one. When they were about to start, they looked at Yi Tianyun. They discovered that Yi Tianyun had taken out a wine table and was drinking wine by the side. Qing Shui was respectfully pouring wine for him at the side, causing them to be stunned. "Aren't you courting death by drinking here?" Qing Meng and the others shook their heads. This kind of action didn't have the slightest hint of preparation. At the same time, it seemed more like a provocation to all the grandmasters. All of them were preparing, but you were serving wine by the side. Isn't this provocation? Therefore, the other grandmasters all looked over unhappily, but they didn't have time to pay attention to them. After all, their hearts were focused on the water spirit fruit, and they didn't have extra energy to spare on others. Soon, the water spirit fruit finally ripened. A dark blue light immediately radiated and spread to the surroundings. It's ripened! At this moment, the numerous grandmasters all rushed towards the sacred tree, one faster than the other. All of them used their star dharma forms, and for a moment, the power of the grandmasters enveloped the area. When they rushed towards the sacred tree immediately emitted a strong shield, blocking them outside. This was the water spirit fruit's last means of protection. After a while, the water spirit fruit would completely transform and be able to escape by itself. At this stage, any spiritual fruit would have its own spirituality, so it would be afraid and choose to escape. Therefore, as long as they didn't rush up quickly, the water spirit fruit would definitely escape. At that time, they wouldn't even be able to find the skin, let alone the water spirit fruit. Open for me! Elder Qing Shuiyu and the other two great elders roared and madly attacked the shield, causing it to cave in. The two great elders broke it at the same time, and their cooperation was flawless. Based on this situation, there was indeed a good chance that they could break the shield and enter. If one looked carefully, there were no grandmasters of the ancestral lands present. The water spirit fruit was precious, but for the ancestral lands, it wasn't that precious. They had better things to offer their disciples. Therefore, the people present were actually elders of some clans, not elders of the ancestral lands. If the ancestral lands came to snatch it, they basically had no chance. The ancestral lands all had dozens or even hundreds of grandmasters of the ancestral lands. If they casually sent a group over, how could they survive? While they were frantically snatching the water spirit fruit, Yi Tianyun's side was still motionless, as if he was really watching from the side. He said he would let little junior sister get the water spirit fruit, and now he's still drinking on the side. What a liar! When Qing Meng saw this, her anger surged again. Now that the snatching had begun, and Yi Tianyun's side still hadn't made a move, she was naturally unhappy. This kid is a playboy, a liar through and through. When this is over, I'll definitely teach him a lesson and let him know what it means to keep a low profile. Qing Dan snorted coldly. He thought that Yi Tianyun was definitely a disciple of a small clan. He was already so arrogant with a grandmaster of the ancestral lands helping him. If there was another grandmaster, wouldn't he fly into the sky? Tianyun, who was drinking, glanced over and slapped the void. Noisy! Slap! Qing Dan felt that his face had been slapped hard, and his whole body was sent flying. His entire face had been slapped like a pig's head, and there was no longer any trace of his previous handsome expression. If you talk too much, next time, it won't be as simple as just slapping you. Yi Tianyun slowly got up. Under the other party's shocked and angry gaze, he slapped the void in front of him, and the space shook. Following that, a ray of light blasted out, directly splitting a huge ravine in the ground, forcibly plowing a path, and at the same time, it hit the tree of God in front of him. With a dong sound, the tree of God shook a little, and the shield outside instantly disappeared. What was left were 3 bare water spirit fruits. Immediately after, 2 water spirit fruits were forcefully pulled down from the tree of God, and only one was left on the tree of God. At the same time, it was still sealed there, unable to escape. The 2 water spirit fruits that were pulled down from the tree of God flew away, and finally landed in Yi Tianyun's hands. Go, there's only 1 water spirit fruit left. If you can pluck it, it'll be your own ability. Yi Tianyun gestured. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.